Hey friends, hope you're all doing well. We're doing okay too, just really tired since we've been working non-stop. We wanted to answer a question many of you ask: how does our publishing process work? Most of our audiobooks are first posted on Patreon as paid content. They stay behind a paywall for a few months. After that, they become free to access on Patreon forever. Then, a few weeks later, we upload them to other platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, X. Lately, our community hasn't been growing much, and we could really use your help. Please share our site in your Facebook groups, Discord servers, Reddit threads, Twitter, X, or with any friends who might be interested. Every little bit helps and we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for being with us and supporting what we do. Chapter 1, I delete my phone screen on the spot. Are you there, Okazuki Kozo-san? The intel you provided was spot on. I sincerely apologize for doubting you before. The vibration of his phone caught Roku Harasuta's attention as he lounged on the sofa. He picked it up and glanced at the screen. Tokaizaki Kurumi had sent him a message. After a brief moment of thought, Suta started typing his reply. Okazuki Kozo, I've given you a lot of intel. Which one are you referring to? Tokaizaki Kurumi, about Itsuka Kotori and Itsuka Shido, of course. Have you already forgotten, Okazuki-san? You were the one who told me that Kotori was a spirit just like me, and that Shido was a boy who could seal a spirit's powers through kissing. It sounded ridiculous at first, but I didn't expect it to be true. Okazuki Kozo, how did you confirm it? Don't tell me you went straight to Kotori for a fight and got taught a lesson. Tokaizaki Kurumi, Okazuki-san, you're as blunt as ever. But you're right, I secretly investigated that sibling pair, tested them a little with some threats, and suddenly, the little sister somehow regained her spirit powers and started attacking me. She was incredibly strong, and her regeneration was insane. I had to sacrifice a clone just to escape. At this point, Roku Harasuta couldn't help but feel speechless. This girl sure knows how to play along. She's way too deep into character. She was even adding extra details to the story. Seriously, someone using the ID Tokaizaki Kurumi, how could they possibly not know the protagonist and his sister from Date Alive? It was worth mentioning that Roku Harasuta Wozaya was not that Rorschach from Watchmen. He was simply a guy from China, surname Wo, given name Zaya's parents had named him that because he was born in summer. TN, changed it from Wozaya, from Roku Harasuta. 10 days ago, Suta had picked up a phone without a lock screen. The phone was strange when he turned it on, it went straight to a chat app, similar to an online chat group. At the top of the screen, the app's name was displayed, Multiversal Friendship System. The name alone screamed web novel protagonist cheat. Oddly enough, there was no way to exit the app, meaning the phone was completely useless aside from running this one program. At first, Suta didn't think much of it. He figured he had just picked up some weird knockoff device. That was until a cold, robotic voice suddenly spoke from the phone. First friend invitation sent, then, in the chat group, the first contact appeared: Tokaizaki Kurumi. At that moment, Suta immediately understood. Oh, it's one of those selling tea leaf scams. TN, the tea scam, the massage scam and the bar scam and the painting scam are all versions of the same scam, getting you to pay way too much money through intimidation or awkwardness for crappy product or no product, in other words a scammer. Had scam artists really evolved to this point? They were even handing out functionally useless phones just for bait? Not to mention, using web novel cliches to trick people who would even fall for that? Did they take people for idiots? Still, Suta didn't throw the phone away. Instead, he decided to play along, treating it as a way to pass the time. Since the chat group only had 2 members, it felt more like a private conversation than a group chat. To keep up appearances, he even changed his ID to Okazuki Kozo. TN, Koyo or Kozuo Kazuki from Monochichimek. Now, they were both anime characters. As their chats continued, Suta quickly realized that this Tokaizaki Kurumi was a full-fledged roleplay addict. She stayed completely in character, acting as if everything was real. But come on, she was chatting fluently in Chinese. Who would actually believe it was the real deal? Of course, Suta wasn't going to ruin the fun by exposing her. Instead, he decided to just play along and indulge in this little make-believe game. On a side note, this phone's battery life was insane. It had been 10 days, and it still hadn't given a single low battery warning. Tokaizaki Kurumi, it was such a close call. Okazuki-san, you're quite the troublemaker. You didn't even warn me about Kotori's strength or her regeneration ability. If I hadn't made it back, you would have lost a beautiful girl as a friend, you know. Seeing her message, Suta instantly got into character. Okazuki Kozo, I didn't expect you to be so reckless to charge in headfirst and even resort to threatening those siblings. Regardless, I miscalculated. My bad. Tokaizaki Kurumi, oh my, An apology? That's rare, Okazuki-san. Okazuki Kozo, if I make a mistake, I admit it. If I get beaten, I stand up straight. No big deal. Anyway, you only mentioned Kotori. What about Shido? How did you verify his ability? Tokaizaki Kurumi, it was simple. That little sister probably thought she killed me, so after I escaped, I secretly followed them and observed their daily life. Not long after they returned home, they went on a date. And at the end of it, they kissed. That's when I saw Kotori's power transfer over to Shido. Okazuki Kozo, you spied on them kissing? Tokaizaki Kurumi, yes, and it was quite the passionate kiss. As a man, Okazuki-san, if you saw it, you might have trouble sleeping at night thinking about things that would make a beautiful girl like me blush. Suda smirked. Did she take him for some clueless virgin who had never seen a single risque scene before? Deciding to play along, he half-jokingly replied, Okazuki Kozo, if I really end up losing sleep and start thinking about those things, Kurumi, as my friend, you'd have to take responsibility. You should give me a kiss to help ease my frustration. Tokaizaki Kurumi, what a bold request. But, considering how much valuable intel you've given me recently, I wouldn't mind rewarding you with a kiss. If it's just a kiss, a clone should be more than enough, don't you think? Suda was left speechless. This girl. What a drama queen. You're way too Chunibyo careful, or you might develop a split personality. Even as he felt speechless, Rokuhara Suda couldn't deny that he was having fun. It almost felt like he was actually trying to romance Tokaizaki Kurumi in a dating sim. So, he decided to play along and responded enthusiastically. Okazuki Kozo, alright then. After chatting with you for these past few days, I've grown quite fond of you too. We already call each other friends, yet we've never met in person. Wouldn't that be a shame? How about we set a time to meet? Tokaizaki Kurumi, sure. Even if you didn't bring it up, I would have. After all, I have a lot of things I want to ask you. Why don't we meet this afternoon? Oh? You're really taking it this far? How are you going to smooth things over now? As Suta pondered this, his fingers instinctively typed out a reply. Okazuki Kozo, no problem. It's the weekend, and I happen to be free all day. After hitting send, curiosity got the better of him. She's already agreed to meet. How is she going to keep this roleplay going? Looks like this little make-believe game is about to end. Just as Suta was thinking this, a cold electronic voice suddenly echoed from his phone. Tokaizaki Kurumi has invited you to her world. Do you accept? Huh? Suta blinked. What happens if I accept? Once the host accepts the invitation, they will be transported to the inviter's side. Additionally, the host will gain unrestricted access to the inviter's world in the future. Suta was startled. Has this phone's voice assistant been on this whole time? The speech recognition was pretty damn impressive. It was almost on series level. But seriously, was the programmer who coded this a hardcore web novel addict? This whole setup was way too Chunibyo. Wait, could Tokaizaki Kurumi actually be an I too? Hey, they're really making this feel real, huh? Suta scoffed and sarcastically declared, alright, fine. If you can make Tokaizaki Kurumi appear in front of me within 17 seconds, I'll eat this phone's screen on the spot. The moment he said that, a blinding white light burst out from his phone, engulfing his vision. For a split second, Rokuhara Suta's face froze in shock. The entire world seemed to stand still for a moment. And then a sensation like being hurled through space and time slammed into his mind like a raging bull, making his head spin. Suta completely panicked. Chapter 2, I'm just a passerby. Oh, come on. Don't mess with me. That was all Suta managed to shout before his body twisted into the white light and vanished. By the time the light faded, his rented apartment's sofa was empty. Just like that, without any preparation, he was forced into an isekai adventure. A strange, weightless sensation overwhelmed him, making him dizzy. It felt like falling from a great height. His instincts made him shut his eyes tight. It was the same feeling he got when riding those high-speed water slides at theme parks. He never dared to open his eyes during the descent. Fortunately, it didn't last long. The moment his feet felt solid ground again, Suta slowly opened his eyes to assess his surroundings. His rented apartment was gone. Instead, he found himself standing in a damp, grimy alleyway. The ground was slightly wet. The walls were covered in graffiti. Plastic bags and bottles were discarded in the corners. A foul smell lingered in the air. It was a dirty, abandoned alley, the kind no one cared about. At that moment, Suta finally let go of the naive idea that this was all an illusion. Holy shit. I actually transmigrated? You wouldn't happen to be Okazuki-san, would you? A soft, elegant female voice tinged with a hint of surprise sounded behind him. The voice was graceful yet clear, carrying a sweet charm that was undeniably pleasant to the ears. Suta instinctively turned around. And there, stepping into his field of vision, was a girl in a red gothic dress. She was breathtakingly beautiful. Her long, raven black hair, tied into twin tails, fluttered gently in the wind. Her delicate limbs looked so fragile that they seemed as if they'd break under the slightest pressure, evoking a sense of deep protectiveness. Even Suta had to admit this girl possessed an irresistible, devilish charm, the kind that could ensnare any man's heart with just a single glance. But he snapped out of it instantly. Because he noticed something. The girl's heterochromatic eyes, her right eye was a deep crimson. Her left eye was a golden clock face. And combined with that highly recognizable dress. Tokaizaki Kurami. And not just any Tokaizaki Kurami, spirit mode Tokaizaki Kurami. Oh shit, I can't afford to mess with her. No, I'm not. I'm just a passerby. Facing the girl's curious gaze, Suta forced himself to stay calm and responded in fluent Japanese. At this moment, he was insanely grateful that he had once, out of pure interest, signed up for a Japanese language class. He had even passed the JLPTN2 exam and spent countless nights practicing his listening skills with NHK broadcasts. At the very least, he wouldn't have any communication issues. And besides, my name isn't Akizuki. I'm Kujojo Taro. You must have mistaken me for someone else, miss. Rokuhara. Suta firmly denies being Akizuki Kozo. After all, Akizuki Kozo had just been flirting with Tokaizaki Kurami a moment ago. If she recognized him now, who knew what would happen? Tokaizaki Kurami was, after all, a spirit who had killed over 10,000 people. Hearing his denial, the black-haired girl scrutinized him with a sharp gaze. A few seconds later, as if she had thought of something, she pulled out a phone, an exact replica of the one Suta had found, and casually tapped on the screen to send a message. Bzzz. A vibration came from Suta's pocket. Suta. He distinctly remembered throwing the phone away in panic when he was engulfed by the white light. How the hell had it ended up back in his pocket? This damn phone is screwing me over. Tokaizaki Kurami smiled sweetly, her soft lips parting as she spoke. To think Akizuki-san would pretend not to know me. How heartbreaking. And besides, both Akizuki Kozo and Kujojotaru are fake names, aren't they? Her tone was as refined as a noble lady's, but her gaze carried a subtle pressure, as if silently accusing him. You're really not an honest person, are you? Ahem. That was just a joke earlier. Don't take it seriously. Realizing he couldn't keep up the act, Suta had no choice but to admit his identity as Akizuki Kozo. He forced himself to stay calm, maintaining a friendly smile as he spoke, and besides, nicknames are just random picks. It's like how I never use my real name online. You're not mad about something so trivial, are you? Suta could feel the cold sweat forming on his temples. The sheer shock of transmigrating combined with the fact that Tokaizaki Kurami was actually real had momentarily overwhelmed his ability to think. But now, his brain snapped back into action. And a terrifying thought hit him like a truck. Tokaizaki Kurami preferred to kill people in secluded alleys. Suta remembered it very clearly in the original story. A few thugs who had tried to assault her were lured into an alleyway and brutally eliminated. And judging by how familiar she seemed with this place, this clearly wasn't her first time doing something like this. And now, he was in a deserted alley. Could it be? Had he just walked straight into her crime scene? With this realization, Suta's gaze instinctively shifted past Kurami. And the moment he saw what was behind her, his pupil shrank in horror. Not far away, on the ground, were several pools of fresh, undried blood. 3 severed feet still wearing blood-stained shoes were scattered nearby. Earlier, he had been too focused on Kurami herself to notice. Now, the full scene was sinking in. A slight twitch formed at the corner of Suta's eye. Yeah. She really is a spirit who's killed over 10,000 people. He forced himself to act natural. Kurami seemed to notice his reaction. With a smile, she teasingly asked, "Did you see it? So? Does it disgust you, Akizuki-san?" "No, I believe you had a valid reason," Suta declared, putting on the most righteous expression he could muster. With a firm and unwavering tone, he continued, "I know you. You never kill good people. Can you tell me what happened?" Kurami paused, clearly taken aback. She gave him a curious glance before replying, "Even back when we chatted on the phone, I could sense it. Akizuki-san, you really are different from other people. If it were anyone else, they'd already be trembling in fear, looking at me like I'm some kind of monster. To be honest, I kind of want to tremble too." Suta complained internally. But he couldn't show it. "There's not much to explain," Kurami continued casually. "I simply ran into a few men whose minds were filled with nothing but lust. They wanted to assault me, so in self-defense, I ate their time and sent them straight to hell." She spoke nonchalantly, as if she were merely reciting a grocery list. It was clear that she had no psychological burden about taking lives. She also wasn't worried about hiding anything from Suta. After all, from their previous phone conversations, she knew that Suta had extensive knowledge about her, even things she had never told anyone before. She had even suspected that he could see the future. So, talking about this wasn't a big deal. That's about what I figured, Suta nodded. The security in this area must be terrible. A beauty like you must run into scumbags like that all the time. Oh my. Is Akazuki-san complimenting me? Kurami's cheeks flushed slightly. Whether she was genuinely embarrassed or just playing along, Suta had no way of telling. It's just the truth. Suta waved his hand dismissively. Not really a compliment. After a slight pause, he added, besides, since these men chose to trample the law, they have no right to complain if someone enforces justice outside of it. Also, just call me Rokuhara Suta. That's my real name. Chapter 3, Making a Decision. From the heart. After revealing his real name, Suta subtly watched Kurami's expression, trying to gauge her reaction. Did my response pass the test? Or am I about to get eliminated? Akazuki. No, Rokuhara-san. As long as you understand, that's good. Hearing his words, Kurami let out a small sigh of relief. What Suta hadn't realized was that Kurami had actually been nervous as well. She had invited him because of his mysterious knowledge. He knew too much, could predict future events, and even revealed secrets she herself wasn't aware of. In her eyes, Suta was not someone to be taken lightly. She had extended the invitation because she wanted to learn more from him. But the moment he arrived, he had stumbled upon her crime scene. That was awkward. Although Suta had claimed to accept her actions, she wasn't sure if he really meant it. If he started fearing her and chose to distance himself, that would be a huge loss. But thankfully, judging by his response, his values seemed to align with hers. He wasn't disgusted, nor did he judge her. That meant he'd be easy to get along with. With that thought, Kurami made a suggestion. This isn't really the best place for a conversation. Why don't we go somewhere else? Half an hour later, a coffee shop in Tengu City. Half an hour later, Rokuhara Suta and Tokaizaki Kurami arrived at a coffee shop in the northern district of Tengu City. Sitting by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the crowds bustling past outside, Suta couldn't shake a sense of unreality. So this is it. I've actually transmigrated into the anime world. So, Rokuhara-san, your phone. You found it by chance, correct? Kurami's voice pulled Suta back to reality, and the sense of disbelief quickly faded. Her spirit outfit was gone, replaced by a simple yet elegant black dress that complemented her pearly white, flawless skin. Her twin tails were let down, and her long bangs cascaded like a black waterfall, covering the left half of her breathtakingly beautiful face, conveniently concealing the golden clock-like pupil in her left eye. By the way, the taxi fare to get here and the cost of the coffee. Kurami paid for all of it. Suta had no idea where she got the money from, and honestly, it was probably best not to ask. Suta nodded. Yeah, that's right. I found mine by chance. How did you get yours? Oh my, how unexpected. I assumed someone as mysterious as you must have created such a thing. Kurami elegantly lifted her cup, took a small sip of coffee, and continued, as for mine. 10 days ago, in the middle of my meal, this phone suddenly appeared in my hands. 10 days ago. Suta thought back. That's exactly when the friend invitation was sent. So this so-called invitation is literally just sending someone a phone. Rokuhara-san, do you understand this? Multiversal friendship system? Kurami asked. Not really, Suta admitted. All I know so far is that the system's main host seems to be me. It sends invitation letters to others, and those who accept the invitation appear in the chat group. And members of the group like you can invite me to their world. Suta couldn't help but feel a strange sense of disconnect hearing Kurami say the words multiversal friendship system. It just didn't match her aesthetic. Like seeing a gothic anime character suddenly talk about internet slang. By the way, have you ever tried throwing the phone away? Suta suddenly remembered something. When he got transported, he clearly remembered dropping the phone in shock, yet after arriving in this world, it had somehow reappeared in his pocket. Maybe Kurami had experienced the same thing? I did, at first, Kurami nodded slightly. But no matter how many times I threw it away, it always returned to my hand. I also tried destroying it, but it appears to have an indestructible attribute. Nothing I do can damage it. Hearing this, Suta looked at the phone in his hand and sighed in amazement. So I've really picked up something unbelievable, huh? At this point, he had fully accepted the reality of the multiversal friendship system. As he took a sip of coffee, he and Kurami continued discussing various details about the phone. Then, they discovered something surprising. The phone had a built-in translation feature. No wonder Kurami understood all the Chinese messages he had sent earlier. It automatically translated all text messages, and even verbal conversations in real time. Suta even tested it by speaking Chinese, and Kurumi still understood him perfectly. As for why he could understand her Japanese without translation, he figured it was because he already knew Japanese, so the system didn't need to translate it for him. As Suta pondered this, Kurumi quietly observed him from across the table. She estimated his age to be around 20. His face was delicate and well-defined, giving off a handsome charm. His looks were undeniably high-tier. However, his slightly unkempt appearance made him seem a bit messy. Good-looking? Yes. But he's completely different from what I imagined. In Kurumi's mind, Suta should have had a more enigmatic, unfathomable aura. Instead, he looked like an ordinary person. No spirit power, no remarkable physique. Aside from being good-looking, he was indistinguishable from a regular guy you'd see on the street. So how does he know so many of my secrets? How could he even predict the future? Had she misjudged him? Rokuhara-san. You're very different from what I imagined. Kurumi didn't bother with subtle hints. She asked directly, tell me, how do you know so much about me? Including all those secrets? Based on their earlier conversations, it was clear that they each came from completely different worlds. Kurumi was already aware of the concept of neighboring worlds, so the idea of alternate universes wasn't surprising to her. What confused her was how could someone from another world know so much about her? Even her most personal information. Including her 3 sizes, bust, 85, waist, 59, hips, 87. To be honest, that last part made her a little wary. If Suta hadn't already provided so much valuable intel, her attitude toward him would have been very different upon meeting him. Hearing Kurumi's question, Suta froze mid-sip of his coffee. Oh my? Kurumi's curiosity deepened as she leaned forward slightly. Did I ask something inconvenient, Rokuhara-san? Suta remained silent, internally debating how to respond. Should he act mysterious, using his knowledge of anime and light novels as a bargaining chip to gain leverage? Or should he just be honest? A tense atmosphere began to build between them. Kurumi's golden eye narrowed slightly as she stared at him, waiting for his answer. After about 30 seconds, Suta exhaled softly, as if releasing a heavy burden. All right. I'll just be honest with you. After thinking it through, Suta realized he was not cut out for playing the mysterious big shot. He was just a regular guy. And besides, the whole point of the multiversal friendship system was to make friends. Between friends, honesty was always best. It made things simpler, easier, and more enjoyable. Deception was exhausting, and the risk of getting caught in a lie was too high. Lying and scheming is just too much trouble, Suta thought to himself. Might as well just tell the truth. Chapter 4. This damn system is so not serious. After sorting out his thoughts, Rokuhara Suta decided to be completely honest. The reason I know about you, as well as some of the secrets of this world, is because in my world, Tokaizaki Kurumi that is, you are actually a fictional character from a story. You appear in a work called Date Alive. Kurumi's expression froze in utter shock. It took her a while to process his words before she finally reacted. I am a character in a story? That's right. Suta nodded seriously. So when I first picked up the phone and started chatting with you, I genuinely thought you were just some hardcore Chunibyo patient, someone who spent all day fantasizing about being an anime character. I figured you were completely delusional. Ahem. Anyway, I thought it was amusing, so I just played along with your act. At the mention of Chunibyo, Kurumi's gaze subtly wavered, as if recalling some dark, embarrassing memories from the past. Suta, completely unaware, continued speaking. It wasn't until I actually transmigrated here that I realized this was all real. Of course, whether it was always real from the start or something changed to make you exist, I have no idea. To prove that he wasn't making things up, Suta shared everything he remembered about Date Alive with Kurumi. Since this multiversal friendship system allowed him to travel to the Date Alive world, it stood to reason that it might also let Kurumi travel to his world. If that were the case, then hiding the truth now would only backfire on him later. For the next hour, Kurumi sat in silence, completely absorbed in processing her shattered worldview. After what felt like ages, she finally spoke, sighing lightly, even though it sounds ridiculous. Considering how much detail you've given me, the credibility is quite high. Her understanding of reality had been thoroughly turned upside down. Seeing her in deep thought, Suta wisely held back a certain piece of information, namely, the fact that he had read her Genshai before. Suddenly, Kurumi's expression shifted, as if she had remembered something important. With a hint of urgency, she asked, Rokuhara-san. If what you're saying is true, then you should know about the first spirit, right? Unfortunately for her, Suta simply shook his head. Sorry. I know that the first spirit exists, but I don't know their identity. Why not? I never finished the novel. For a moment, Kurumi was at a complete loss for words. She felt like something inside her just got stuck, making it hard to breathe. Such crucial information. Lost simply because he never finished reading the story. Kurumi had spent so many years tirelessly searching for the truth about the first spirit, and yet, to someone else, it was nothing more than a book they lost interest in halfway through. The sheer contrast between their perspectives left her feeling incredibly complicated. Even her gaze towards Suta now carried a hint of quiet resentment. This made Suta increasingly uneasy. He had no idea how to read Kurumi's current attitude toward him. Sure, she looked soft-spoken and graceful right now, but this was Tokaizaki Kurumi. A spirit who had slaughtered over 10,000 people. To be honest, it wasn't that he never finished the novel. It was more like at the time, he got bored of reading light novels and switched to reading web novels instead. And light novels had annoyingly slow release schedules. Once you paused reading them, it was hard to pick them back up. Of course, Suta would never say this out loud. He wasn't that socially clueless. I stopped reading around the part where Origami turned into a spirit and Shindu started messing with time travel, causing changes in the world line, Suta explained. The information about the first spirit was probably revealed in the newer volumes that I never got around to reading. Seeing Kurumi's clear disappointment, Suta thought for a moment, then offered some advice, that said, if you really want to find out what happens next, there actually is a very simple way. What way? Kurumi's eyes lit up slightly, immediately intrigued. Suta shook his phone and smirked, this thing right here. Since it can bring me to your world, logically, it should also allow you to travel to mine. If that works, then getting the information you want is as easy as browsing the internet and reading the novel. That's true. Kurumi blinked, suddenly realizing she had overlooked such an obvious possibility. But in her defense, unlike Suta, she hadn't been exposed to countless web novels. Her instinctive thought process never even considered the concept of traveling to another world. Kurumi sighed softly and murmured, it really feels like something I've spent my whole life chasing. Is completely worthless to you. To think that the truth of the world she had been so desperate to uncover was just sitting on the internet, waiting to be read like a casual web novel. The absurdity of it all was almost too much to handle. But as ridiculous as it sounded, she had no choice but to accept it. Determined, she picked up her phone and asked a question, System, can I travel to Rokuhara-san's world? To be honest, even if the answer was no, it wouldn't matter too much. As long as Suta could return to his world, they could still share information remotely. But she was way too curious about his world. She wanted to see it with her own eyes. A moment later, the cold electronic voice from the phone replied, yes. As a friend of the host, you may travel to the host's world with their permission. However, to leave your current world, you must maintain physical contact with the host. The specific physical contact rules are as follows. Male friends must shake hands with the host, female friends must hug the host. Before Kurumi could even react, Suta immediately blurted out a complaint, what the hell, System? Are you serious right now? What kind of absurd rule is this? Damn System, you're so not serious right now. Oh, come on. Don't mess with me like this. The System's requirement that he had to hug Tokaizaki Kurumi to take her to his world was basically a death trap. If he ended up annoying this spirit girl, Suta was seriously concerned about his personal safety. After all, this was Tokaizaki Kurumi, a spirit with a confirmed kill count in the 5 digits. Thinking for a moment, he turned to Kurumi and carefully proposed, Ms. Kurumi, I can help investigate the information you want once I return to my world. I'll send you everything through the phone. There's no need for us to put up with this stupid system's rules. Oh? Kurumi's lips curled into a playful smirk, and she looked at Suta with amusement in her eyes. Rokuhara-san, you're acting a little different from how you did in our phone chats. She leaned forward slightly, her teasing gaze locking on to him. Didn't you say before that if you had trouble sleeping, I'd have to take responsibility by giving you a kiss to help you relieve your frustration? Compared to that request, a hug is much tamer, don't you think? Suta. Oh crap, she remembers that? Was she the type to hold grudges over jokes? She remembered it this clearly. He really had dug his own grave when he typed that message. If he had known that Tokaizaki Kurumi was real, there was no way he would have said something like that. Now, he was stuck dealing with the consequences. Feeling a bit awkward, Suta scratched his cheek and admitted, well, I did say that, but I didn't know you were real at the time. I thought you were just some scammer trying to mess with me. Since I found it amusing, I played along and role-played with you. That's why I sent some, let's just say, not so appropriate messages. Looking sincerely apologetic, he bowed his head slightly and said, if I said anything that offended you, I hope you won't take it to heart. As he spoke, a hint of worry could be seen on his face. Kurumi noticed his unease and suddenly asked, Rokuhara-san, you're just a normal human without any powers. Aren't you? Suta hesitated for only a second before nodding. Yeah. I am. Since he was already exposed, there was no point in trying to hide it. And honestly, Kurumi could have figured it out easily just by testing him. Chapter 5, A Date with Tokaizaki. Kurumi seeing Suta nod, Kurumi finally understood the reason for his nervousness. She smiled softly and spoke in a gentle tone, Rokuhara. I'll just call you that from now on. You can just call me by my name too. You don't have to be afraid of me. I won't harm you, and I wasn't blaming you for anything earlier. The information you provided through the phone helped me a lot. I consider us friends, so you really don't need to be so tense. And that's the truth, you know. After a brief pause, she added in a slightly pouty tone, but now that you're acting all distant, it makes me a little unhappy. Ms. Kurumi Suta started to speak but was immediately cut off. What did you just call me? Suta sighed and smiled bitterly. Kurumi. That's better. Kurumi's expression softened, satisfied with the change. Suta hesitated for a moment, then explained, it's not that I'm intentionally trying to distance myself from you or that I'm afraid of you. After thinking for a bit, he continued, if you suddenly find yourself face to face with someone who can easily kill you and who doesn't exactly see killing as a big deal, it's natural to feel a bit of fear and want to keep some distance. That's just basic survival instinct. As you can see, I'm just an ordinary human. I can't really control that reaction. I see. I should have considered that, Kurumi murmured. For a brief moment, a shadow passed through her golden eye, as if she was remembering something unpleasant. But she quickly pushed those thoughts aside. She sighed softly and then spoke with unwavering seriousness, I would never harm my friends. Never. No matter what, I need you to trust me on this. She practically gritted her teeth as she said it, as if she was making a solemn vow. The sudden intensity caught Suta off guard. What just happened? We were talking normally, and now she's suddenly getting all serious. Why are you yelling? But then, Suta recalled something. Even though he hadn't finished reading the novel, he had heard people discussing Date Alive's plot before. And from what he remembered, Kurumi was a tragic anti-hero. She had once been deceived by the first spirit, leading her to kill countless innocent girls. And in the process, she had accidentally killed her own friend. Ever since then, she had been desperately trying to change the past to undo her mistakes. For someone like her, the word friend must hold immense meaning. Perhaps it was because of the sincerity in Kurumi's tone, but Suta lowered his guard slightly. He slowly took a deep breath and spoke, All right, Kurumi. I promise I'll work on adjusting my mindset when I'm around you. Then, deciding to lighten the mood, he added with a grin, Give it enough time, and even if you could punch a hole through a planet, I'd still be able to joke around with you. Hearing that, Kurumi giggled. Her attitude completely reassured Suta. It seemed that the novel's depiction of her was accurate after all. Despite being labeled the most evil spirit, Tokaizaki Kurumi was not some mindless, sadistic killer. Even though she needed vast amounts of time or life energy to achieve her goal, she never indiscriminately slaughtered people. She had a moral line she refused to cross. She only killed evil people. Of course, from a conventional moral standpoint, her actions were still problematic. But at the same time, Kurumi had an undeniable charismatic appeal. And as for Suta, he personally had no issue with Kurumi killing criminals. After all, he had told her before, people who willfully trample over the rules of society shouldn't complain when they're punished by someone outside the system. That wasn't just something he said to humor her, he genuinely believed it. And in this regard, their values actually aligned quite well. Punching a hole through a planet? That's a bit of an exaggeration. A delicate girl like me could never do something like that. Kurumi gently brushed her lips with her fingertip, wiping away the last trace of coffee. The movement was subtly seductive, almost as if she were sending a silent invitation. I truly value this friendship, she said, keeping her elegant smile. I especially enjoyed chatting with you over the phone, Rokuhara-san. You were always so natural, always joking around with me. Even telling me dirty jokes from time to time. Cough. Suta nearly choked on air. Why would you bring that up? Desperate to change the topic, he quickly said, Let's just drop this, alright, Kurumi? More importantly, we should get going. Let's head to my world and start our investigation right away. However, Kurumi shook her head and said, Rokuhara-san, don't you think you're being a little impatient? You seem quite interested in my world. Otherwise, you wouldn't keep glancing out the window so often. Hearing this, Suta froze for a moment. Was I really that obvious? Truthfully, he was curious about Tang City, the setting of Date Alive. Realizing he had been caught, he simply admitted it. Alright, you got me. I am interested. If you suddenly found out that the world of a story you know so well is actually real, wouldn't you want to explore it too? To think that a world he had always believed to be fiction was actually real. Of course he was curious. It would be a waste not to explore it. If he just left right away, he would definitely regret it later. I understand how you feel, Kurumi said, glancing out the window at the bustling streets. You've been helping me all this time. Now that you're in my world, it would be wrong of me, as your friend, not to show you around. She then turned to face him again, smiling sweetly, a mix of youthful shyness and mature lure in her expression. So, how about we go on a date? Suda? A date? Are you serious? For a moment, his thoughts ran wild. But then he quickly realized he was overthinking it. In Japan, the word date didn't necessarily mean a romantic outing, it could simply mean going out together as friends. Even business meetings could be called dates. After coming to this realization, Suta nodded and agreed, then I'll be in your care. There's no need to be so formal. Besides, I've always looked forward to spending time with a friend like this. With graceful movements, Kurumi stood up from her seat and made a gentle inviting gesture. And with that, the two of them left the cafe and stepped onto the busy streets of Tengu City. A date with Tokaizaki Kurumi, dressed in a black one-piece dress, walked elegantly beside him. Her noble, refined aura was undeniable. She carried herself like a true lady of high society. Combined with her astonishingly beautiful face, it was no surprise that she attracted countless stares as they walked down the street. To be honest, Suta had never seen a girl as stunning as her in his entire life. Maybe it was because this world was 2D brought to life, but Kurumi's beauty was almost unreal. And now, such a dreamlike girl was walking so closely beside him. No wonder the men around them were staring daggers at him. Suta could practically feel their hostility stabbing into his back. Looking up at the sky, he muttered to himself, as if trying to see something beyond the clouds. Kurumi noticed his behavior and asked, "What's on your mind?" Without lowering his gaze, Suta replied, "I was wondering if the airship Phraxus is floating right above us right now." Chapter 6. Returning to the real world. Suta's expression turned serious as he quietly said to Kurumi, "You previously had a conflict with Itsuka Kotori. Since she's the commander of Ratodosk, do you think she might be using the ship to track and monitor you?" Kurumi pondered for a moment before shaking her head. Kotori. She probably thinks I'm already dead. Suta, however, wasn't so sure. I doubt it. You do have a record of coming back to life. She should be able to find that out. After thinking for a bit, he suggested, just to be safe, we should probably disguise ourselves. Kurumi thought it over and agreed. The two of them headed to a clothing store. Suta helped Kurumi pick out a stylish hat, along with some other fashionable outfits. Kurumi even tried some of them on for him. What started as disguising themselves soon turned into a shopping spree. Suta's eye twitched. Kurumi seemed to have zero sense of urgency. But seeing how happy she looked, he didn't have the heart to say anything. After buying clothes, they went out to eat. Even though this was an isekai world, the food tasted just like Japanese cuisine. After their meal, Kurumi dragged Suta to a movie theater. She genuinely seemed to enjoy spending time just hanging out. By the time they finished, Suta realized something odd. He was supposed to be the visitor in this world. Yet somehow, it felt like Kurumi was the one experiencing a new world instead. By the way, since Suta didn't have any money in this world, all the expenses, meals, movies, shopping were paid for by Kurumi. This was his first time experiencing the freeloader lifestyle, and honestly, it was kind of refreshing. Originally, Suta had wanted to go see some of the other spirits from Date Alive. But after asking Kurumi, he learned that none of the spirits had appeared in Tengu City yet. In other words, the main plot hadn't even started. A bit disappointing. But nothing he could do about it. Nightfall time passed quickly, and soon, it was nighttime. After finishing the movie, Suta and Kurumi made their way to a hill on the outskirts of the city. From there, they had a breathtaking view of the city's nightscape, neon lights flickering, the streets still buzzing with life. "Thanks for spending the whole day with me," Suta said, glancing at his phone. It was already 9:30 p.m. Kurumi also checked the time. Her expression was soft, and despite walking around all day, she showed no signs of exhaustion. If anything, she seemed even more energized. "If anything, I should be thanking you." She gazed at the glowing city below, her eyes filled with nostalgia. "It's been a long time since I've had an experience like this. If you ever want to do it again, just message me." Suta waved his phone, then added, "The system already told me since I accepted your invitation, I can now come and go from this world freely." Then, smiling, he said, "All right, now it's my turn to be the host. Let's go, it's time to visit my world." But just as he finished speaking, his smile stiffened. Because he suddenly remembered. The system's ridiculous rule: female friends must hug the host to travel between worlds. Something wrong? Kurumi noticed the change in his expression, and after realizing what was on his mind, She gave him a mischievous look. She clearly enjoyed teasing men. It's nothing. Let's just get going. Suta suddenly felt like he was being looked down on by a little girl. But then again, even though Kurumi looked like a 16 or 17-year-old girl, given the nature of spirits, she was definitely older than she appeared. Which meant a girl's body, but a mature woman's mentality. Well, in that case, getting teased by her didn't seem so bad. Suta looked at Kurumi and asked, "So, do you want to do it, or should I?" Do what, exactly, Rokuharu-kun? Kurumi stood completely still, a relaxed expression on her face, looking like she was enjoying the show. Suta sighed. Fine. I'll do it. He took a step forward, spread his arms, and gently pulled Kurumi's delicate body into an embrace. His hands rested lightly on her soft back. Kurumi let out a soft hum, her sultry voice brushing against Suta's ears, making his heart skip a beat. A faint, floral fragrance filled his nose, the scent of her hair. Suta inhaled softly, feeling the warmth and softness of the girl in his arms, his mind subtly wavering. Glancing down at Kurumi, he noticed something surprising. Despite her usual elegance and confidence, at this moment, her eyes slightly averted his gaze and her cheeks were tinged with red. She looked incredibly charming. I thought you didn't get embarrassed, Suta suddenly remarked. Kurumi met his gaze, then quickly regained her composure. Shall we begin? She said, pretending to be completely unaffected. Suta decided not to call her out on it. Instead, he simply nodded. All right, system initiate teleportation. A brilliant white light enveloped the two of them. In the darkness of the night, no one noticed their departure. As the light faded away, Rokuharu, Suta and Tokaizaki Kurumi vanished from this world. Midnight, reality at exactly 12:00 a.m., inside a small one-bedroom apartment a white light flashed, and two distorted figures gradually emerged from it. As the light dispersed, their forms became clear. Suta and Kurumi had returned. Opening his eyes, Suta scanned his surroundings. A faint smile appeared on his face. I'm back. There was no place quite like home. As much as he had enjoyed exploring another world, nothing could replace the sense of comfort and familiarity that came with returning to his own space. Oh my? Still wrapped in his embrace, Kurumi curiously glanced around the apartment, her golden eye shining in the dim moonlight. Her expression was one of intrigue. She wasn't quite convinced yet. Had they really arrived in another world? After all, from her perspective, it just felt like they had teleported somewhere. That, in itself, wasn't too impressive. After all, her shadow manipulation worked in a similar way. She could use shadows to disappear, hide herself, and even store her clones. If she needed to, she could also reappear at any location instantly. So simply jumping between places wasn't enough to convince her that they had truly entered a different world. This is my rented apartment, Suta explained as he let go of Kurumi and walked over to the wall switch, flipping on all the lights. The bright glow immediately filled the room. Glancing at his phone, he noticed the time: 12:00 a.m. Suta frowned in surprise. Huh? Does this phone automatically adjust to the current world's time? I remember before we traveled, it was only a little past 9 p.m. The entire teleportation process only took a few seconds, so how had 2 hours passed? He walked over to the window, looking outside. It was completely dark, and the neighborhood was quiet, just like a typical midnight atmosphere. System, do different worlds have time differences? Yes, well, that explains it. Suta nodded in understanding. At that moment, Kurumi, who had been observing her surroundings, murmured, so this really is another world? That's right, 100% real. Suta nodded again. Having his own world labeled as an isekai felt a bit strange. Suddenly, he remembered something important and quickly warned her, oh, and whatever you do, don't trigger a spacequake here. This world doesn't have any supernatural powers. It wouldn't be able to handle it. Chapter 7, Should I peek at Tokaizaki Kurumi while she's bathing? Hearing Suta's urgent warning, Kurumi instinctively wanted to trigger a spacequake. It wasn't that she was being rebellious on purpose. It was just that if someone tells you don't think about an elephant, your mind immediately pictures an elephant. It was the same kind of psychological effect. Suddenly, Suta felt a slight tremor and immediately turned to Kurumi, his voice tense. Hey. Kurumi-san? What are you doing? Kurumi quickly suppressed her urge, looking a little surprised. I was just testing it. She tilted her head slightly and mused, the space here is incredibly stable. Even using minimal force, I couldn't shake it at all. When I gradually increased my strength to the maximum, all I managed was a slight tremor. It seems we really aren't in my original world anymore. Wait. You just decided to test it right away? Kurumi shook her head with a smile. Relax. I made sure to hold back and stabilize it afterward. Suta let out a deep breath, feeling somewhat relieved but also exasperated. Next time, at least warn me first. I'm just a regular guy, you know I could literally get scared to death. After that, he walked into his bedroom, grabbed his old iPhone and laptop, and returned to the living room. Handing the iPhone to Kurumi, he said, "Use my phone to do your research. I'll use my laptop. Just search for data live that should give you everything you need." At that moment, a strange feeling crept up on him. Having Tokizaki Kurumi search data live on his smartphone to investigate her own existence. Something about that just felt deeply surreal. Kurumi took the iPhone and frowned slightly at the foreign characters on the screen. After a brief pause, she asked, "Rokuhara-san. This world isn't Japan, is it?" Suta glanced at her and asked tentatively, "Wait. Don't tell me you can't read it?" Kurumi simply smiled and said nothing. It was one of those figure-it-out-yourself expressions, as if she didn't want to openly admit it. Suta frowned slightly. "So the system doesn't translate text? Does it only handle spoken communication and messages sent through the system phone?" Kurumi nodded, agreeing with his guess. "That seems to be the case." Suta rubbed his forehead, then sighed. "All right, I'll do the searching myself. You can just watch the anime on my laptop. That would be quite helpful." Kurumi nodded politely, accepting his arrangement. She mentally made note of all the things Suta had done for her. Suta dragged over his gaming chair, set up the laptop for Kurumi, and did a quick search for data live. Then, he explained, "I've already told you most of the story, but now you can see it for yourself this way, you'll know I wasn't lying." Kurumi pouted slightly, her tone playful. It's quite sad that you'd think I doubted you. I never suspected you, Rokuhara-san. Can't you trust me a little more?" She crossed her arms and made a slightly sulky expression, looking a bit like a little girl throwing a small tantrum. Then, shifting her focus, she lightly ran her fingers over the laptop's touchpad, her movements fluid and practiced. Having lived among humans for years, she was no stranger to modern technology. "Well, it should be interesting to watch anyway," she said with a soft smile. "I'm quite curious. Before we met, how did you see me? What kind of role did I play in your eyes? Take your time. I'll call you when I'm done researching." With that, Suta picked up his old phone, opened Google, and started reading the Data Live light novel. Simply looking up summary articles online wouldn't give him detailed enough information. If he relied on incomplete data, he could easily miss crucial details. It was better to just read the novel properly from the beginning. But when he saw that Data Live had already reached volume 20, his eye twitched violently. "Looks like I'm pulling an all-nighter." The next afternoon Suta finally put down his phone, yawning heavily. 18 hours of non-stop reading. After 18 straight hours of reading Data Live without sleep or rest, Rokuhara Suta had finally finished the novel. He rushed into the bathroom, splashed cold water on his face, and then returned to the living room only to find that Kurumi had fallen asleep at the table. She had headphones on, and the anime was still playing on the laptop. As Suta walked closer, he could hear her soft breathing. He gently removed her headphones and closed the laptop. "She actually fell asleep in a guy's house on the first day we met." Suta looked at Kurumi's sleeping face, then muttered to himself, "Is she really that trusting, or does she just see me as harmless and completely non-threatening? If it was the latter, that's kind of depressing." Kurumi's sleeping face wasn't peaceful. Her delicate brows were tightly furrowed, as if she was having a nightmare. "She's probably dreaming about the past," Suta thought. Now that he had finished reading the novel, he knew for sure Kurumi had really been deceived by the first spirit into killing her own friend. That was why she was so desperate to go back in time and change everything. Suta couldn't help himself. He reached out and gently rubbed Kurumi's brows, smoothing out the deep furrows. For a moment, they relaxed, but soon enough, they knitted together again. Suta sighed and repeated the action. After doing this several times, Kurumi finally stayed still. Just as Suta was feeling satisfied with his work, Kurumi's eyes suddenly opened, staring straight at him. Suta froze completely, then forced an awkward smile and said, "Don't get the wrong idea. Your brows were furrowed, so I was just trying to smooth them out. I wasn't trying to do anything weird." Kurumi blinked slowly, then smiled mischievously. "I know. I actually woke up the first time you touched me. Then I decided to test you to see if you'd try doing anything inappropriate while I was asleep." She chuckled softly. "The result? You're surprisingly well behaved. But still, staring at a sleeping girl's face for so long, that's not a very good habit, Rokuhara-san." Although she pretended to scold him, there was no real blame in her tone. Stretching her arms with a soft yawn, she smiled and said, "Good morning, Rokuhara-san." Suta pointed to the window and sighed. "Not morning. It's already past 6 p.m. The sun's about to set." Kurumi looked genuinely surprised. "That late already? Wait. Don't tell me you didn't sleep at all?" "Nope." Suta grinned, his excitement barely contained. After a whole night of research, I finally found the answers you wanted. Kurumi stared at him for a moment, then sighed helplessly. Rokuhara-san. I wasn't in that much of a hurry to get information. We could have taken our time. More than anything, as a friend, I want you to take better care of yourself. It's fine. I'm used to pulling all-nighters. Then, changing the subject, Suta said, anyway, I got some toiletries for you. Want to freshen up first? After that, we'll eat and go over the details. Kurumi nodded in agreement. Soon, the sound of running water came from the bathroom. Suta froze slightly. Wait. When I said freshen up, I meant washing your face and brushing your teeth, not taking a full bath. Now, the question was, as a man, should he try to take a peek? Chapter 8, Learning the Truth. After thinking it over, Suta sighed and shook his head. Nah, I like being alive. Why dig my own grave? Rokuhara-san, lend me one of your shirts. Kurumi's voice came from the bathroom. Huh? Suta blinked. Wasn't Kurumi supposed to have plenty of outfits stored in her shadow space? Maybe she was just playing around, enjoying teasing him again. Without thinking too much about it, Suta grabbed a button-up shirt and hung it on the bathroom doorknob. A moment later, Kurumi stepped out wearing only the oversized shirt, which barely covered her hips. Her long, slender legs were fully exposed, her fair skin almost glowing under the room's lighting. The loose fabric clung lightly to her body, subtly revealing her curves. Suta couldn't help but wonder. Is she even wearing anything underneath? Cough. Suta cleared his throat, quickly looking away. Kurumi pursed her lips slightly, then smirked playfully. Consider this. A reward for my hardworking friend who stayed up all night. Ahem. Well, I just ordered takeout. While we wait, let's get down to business. Suta decided that some things were best left appreciated from a distance. Kurumi sat down across from him and asked, So? Did you figure out who the first spirit is? Yeah. Suta looked at her and asked back, You finished watching Data Live Season 1 and 2, right? Yes. I remember most of the characters. To be honest, watching herself appear as an anime character had been a very surreal experience. Especially the scene where she had slowly lifted her skirt in front of Itsuka Shido that had been beyond embarrassing. It felt like she was being publicly executed in front of the screen. Then this will be easy to explain, Suta said. Without any hesitation, he revealed the truth. The first spirit you've been looking for is Morasame Rain, the analyst from Ray.Osker. You know, the woman with the permanent dark circles under her eyes who always keeps a stuffed bear in her breast pocket. It's her? Kurumi's expression instantly changed, clearly shocked. The first spirit. Was this close to me the whole time? She had been searching for so long and yet, she never realized it? That's right, it's her. Suta nodded firmly. To be honest, I was pretty shocked too. Who would have thought that the final boss was hiding right inside the main character's team this whole time? After organizing his thoughts, he continued, Let me summarize everything. 30 years ago, 3 Megas Isaac, Elliot, and Ellen decided to take revenge on humanity after their village was destroyed. They used spirit techniques to concentrate all the world's magic into a single point, creating the first spirit, but in the process, they also triggered the Eurasia spacequake disaster, which resulted in the deaths of 1.3 billion people. That event was the beginning of everything. After the first spirit was born, a boy named Shinji Takamiya found her and took her in. He named her Mayo. For a while, Mayo lived peacefully with Shinji and his younger sister, Mana. But then, Isaac discovered her and started hunting her down. During the chase, Isaac shot and killed Shinji Takamiya. In order to save him, Mayo absorbed his corpse into her body and gave birth to him again as the person we now know as Shido Etsuka. Mayo granted Shido the ability to seal spirit powers, intending to split her own energy into Clypha crystals and have Shido absorb them over time. Her ultimate goal was to make him immortal so they could be together forever. But the initial Clypha crystals were in their inverse state and required massive amounts of human sacrifice to refine them into usable forms. So, Mayo gave out fragments of her power to multiple individuals, having them refine the cores for her. However, in the early stages, every single person who received a Clypha crystals transformed into a monster. Mayo was then forced to hunt them down and reclaim the Clypha crystals from their bodies. Just as Suta reached this point, Kurumi suddenly interrupted him. I already know about the sapphire crystals. There was a deep bitterness in her voice, a barely restrained fury. The so-called first spirit she claimed to be a hero of justice. She gave me a refined sapphire crystals, granting me my spirit powers, and then tricked me into helping her hunt down monsters, saying it was to save the world. But then, I discovered the truth. One day, I killed a flame monster only to realize it had been my friend all along. That was when I finally understood these monsters had once been ordinary humans. Suta could see the heavy shadows forming in Kurumi's expression. He sighed silently. He had no idea how to comfort her, so he simply reached out and patted her shoulder. "Don't worry," he said. "As long as you achieve your goal, all of this can still be changed." "I'm fine." Kurumi quickly regained her composure, forcing a soft smile. "Sorry. That must have been an unpleasant sight." Seeing that she had calmed down, Suta continued, "After you learned the truth about the monsters, Maio erased your memories and sealed you away in the neighboring world. Later, she split herself into two forms to avoid being detected. Most of the time, she lived as Mora Same Rain, but when necessary, she appeared as the Phantom, continuing to distribute refined sapphire crystals to humans and erasing their memories of their previous lives. That's how so many spirits came into existence." As he spoke, Suta frowned slightly. Kurumi noticed his hesitation and asked, "What's wrong?" Suta let out a deep sigh. Maio is unbelievably powerful. She has 3 different angels she can use, and even if all existing spirits teamed up against her, they still wouldn't be able to defeat her. Now that he was more comfortable talking to Kurumi, his words became blunt and direct, even teasing. Kurumi, however, wasn't offended, only shocked. "You mean, even if every spirit attacked her together, she would still win?" "Exactly." Kurumi was silent for a moment, then simply shook her head. "That doesn't matter. My goal was never to fight and kill her directly. My plan has always been to travel 30 years into the past and eliminate her before she is even born. If she never exists, then none of the tragedies that followed will ever happen." Suta frowned. "But if you do that, you'll disappear as well because of the timeline change, won't you?" It was a simple concept. Kurumi, as she was now, only existed because Maio had given her sapphire crystals. If Maio never existed, then Spirit Kurumi would be erased from existence. A different version of her would live a normal human life, but that would be an entirely different person. "That doesn't matter." Kurumi's golden eye gleamed with determination. "This is the wish I've pursued all my life. I'm fully prepared to sacrifice myself for it." Chapter 9, Wait, there's a newbie starter pack? Absolutely not. Suta immediately rejected her idea. "As your friend, I can't just stand by and let you disappear. This is not happening." After thinking for a moment, he proposed a different plan. "How about this: when you go back to 30 years ago, don't destroy Maio's birth factor right away. First, invite me to your world. The system will transport me directly to your side. Once I'm there, then you can erase Maio's existence. And the moment you do, I'll immediately take you back to my world. That way, when your world's timeline changes, you won't be affected, but you'll have to live in my world from then on. If you ever return, the world's rules will probably erase you." Kurumi's lips curled into a smile. Rokuhara-san, are you really that reluctant to part with me?" She wasn't displeased. If anything, she seemed genuinely happy that he cared this much. "Yeah, of course I don't want you to disappear," Suta admitted openly. "We're friends, aren't we?" Kurumi exhaled softly, her expression relaxing. "Friends, huh? Thank you. Your idea is worth considering. However, it's a shame. With my current time reserves, I don't have enough power to activate the 12th bullet and travel 30 years back." "Oh, right." Suta suddenly remembered. Kurumi's stored time energy wasn't nearly enough to execute her plan. "You spirits. You're not actually immortal, are you?" "Of course not. If we were, I could use my angel's abilities to go back in time as much as I wanted." Kurumi sighed and added, "Spirits only have longer lifespans than humans, but we're not truly immortal. That's why I have to steal time from others to keep myself going." Hearing this, Suta fell into deep thought. Kurumi had morals. She would never massacre innocents to gather time. And only hunting criminals for time energy would take way too long. There has to be a way to help her get a massive amount of time all at once. All of a sudden, Rokuhara Suta had an idea. He immediately picked up his phone and called out to the system. "System, I have a question. If we find the real-world author of Date alive and convince him to rewrite the story, would Kurumi's world change accordingly? If that were possible, wouldn't it be way easier to just have the author add a super resurrection ability to the story? Then everyone who had died, the 1.3 billion casualties from the Eurasia Sky disaster, Kurumi's friend, and countless others could all be brought back to life. That way, Kurumi wouldn't have to go back in time to change history." However, the system immediately shot down his idea. When a fictional world becomes real, the relationship between the author and the world is no longer that of creator and creation. The host's method is ineffective. Suta clicked his tongue in frustration. Damn, not even the tiniest loophole to exploit, huh? Since rewriting the script was out of the question, the only alternative was to solve Kurumi's time reserve problem directly. Meanwhile, Kurumi was somewhat impressed by Suta's outside-the-box thinking. Most people would try to work within the established rules. But Suta's first instinct was to flip the entire chessboard. Just as the two were deep in thought, the doorbell rang. Suta got up and opened the door. His takeout had arrived. The two of them sat down in the living room and began eating. However, halfway through the meal, Suta suddenly realized something. He had been too fixated on solving the problem within the Data Live world. Why limit myself to just this world? Why not consider other anime universes? After all, the multiverse was full of crazy, overpowered abilities. There were plenty of ways to gain immortality in different anime worlds. If he could obtain immortality, he could provide Kurumi with infinite time energy. Or better yet, if Kurumi herself could gain immortality, the problem would be solved completely. With this in mind, Suta immediately picked up his phone and asked, "System, can I take Kurumi to other worlds?" The system responded, "Yes. There are two ways to travel. 1. If a friend invites you, you can travel to their world. 2. If you use a travel card, one-time item, you can travel to a specified world, selecting an approximate time and location." Wait, I can set the time and place with a travel card? Suta was shocked and quickly asked, "Does that mean I could use a travel card to go 30 years before the start of Data Live?" No. A friend's world is time-locked to sync with reality. You cannot time travel within a friend's world. Figures. No loopholes to exploit. Alright, then do I have any travel cards? No. Travel cards must be purchased with points in the system store. Points are earned by completing missions. The store and mission system will unlock once the system has at least 3 users. Wait, points? Missions? This was the first time Suta had heard about this. But the 3-user requirement was annoying. Right now, there were only 2 users, him and Kurumi. Who knew how long it would take to get a 3rd user? Is there any other way? He asked, unwilling to give up. Yes. The system provides a newbie starter pack for the host. Would you like to claim it? Wait, I have a starter pack? Suta was genuinely surprised, but after thinking about it, he realized it made sense. When he first found this strange phone, he had assumed it was some scammer's trap. He hadn't bothered exploring its functions at all. If he had checked earlier, he probably would have discovered this sooner. Without hesitation, Suta claimed the newbie starter pack. A notification popped up. You have received 1 travel card, 1 invitation letter, 1 lottery spin, finally, a travel card. This meant he could now solve Kurumi's time problem. As for the other 2 items, Suta asked, is the invitation letter the same as the one Kurumi received? Basically, a phone? Correct. The system periodically distributes invitation letters at random. However, the one in your possession allows you to choose who to invite, so I can choose. This was a huge advantage. The system did hand out invitations, but since it was random, Suta had no control over who received them. However, the invitation letter in his possession allowed him to target a specific person. Unlike travel cards, which were one-time use, the invitation letter created a permanent connection. If someone accepted the invitation and later invited Suta in return, he would gain unlimited access to their world. It would be just like how he could now freely enter and exit the Data Live world. The only difference was that if he traveled to Data Live using this method, he would appear directly next to Kurumi. But if Kurumi wasn't in Data Live at the time, he would likely be randomly teleported somewhere. Chapter 10, Tokaizaki Kurumi is weaker than a low-level mook? The invitation letter is a game-changer. Rokuhara Suta marveled at how powerful the invitation letter was. After a brief moment of thought, he asked the system, "System, can invitation letters be exchanged for points?" Yes. Invitation letters are available for purchase in the system store. That means I'll have to wait until the store unlocks. He then glanced at the last reward, and what's this one lottery spin thing? The system has a lottery function. Prizes include, but are not limited to, everyday items, combat weapons, superpowers, magic, cultivation techniques, etc. Oh? Suta's curiosity was instantly piqued. A lottery. That sounds worth a try. If he could win a divine weapon or an incredible ability, that would mean he could finally break free from his ordinary human status and step into the realm of the extraordinary. Suta had always longed for such power. Who wants to stay average forever? Unfortunately, the store function hadn't been unlocked yet. So even though he had 1 lottery spin, he couldn't use it. That was seriously frustrating. Looks like I'll have to wait. Kurumi's curiosity. Suta, did you think of a solution? Kurumi's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. Sorry. I got caught up in my own questions. Let me explain. Only then did Suta realize that Kurumi had been staring directly at him. She probably didn't understand his conversation with the system. So he carefully explained everything: the travel card, points, store system, and mission system in simple, easy-to-understand terms. After hearing it all, Kurumi gazed at the phone in surprise. A store system? And a mission system? Will those unlock on my end too? Probably. Suta wasn't entirely sure, so he asked the system. The system's answer was yes. Then a thought occurred to him. System, how many people can travel using a travel card? The travel card is a single-use item, but if the host is using it, any friend group members in physical contact with the host may travel as well. The specific rule is, male friends must shake hands with the host, while female friends must hug the host. Why is it always this weird rule? Suta was genuinely curious about what the system was thinking when it made these rules. Meanwhile, Kurumi still looked a little doubtful. A travel card. Is that really enough to solve my time reserve problem? You don't get it, do you? Suta smirked mysteriously. The multiverse is a treasure trove. If we use it wisely, not only can we get you an unlimited amount of time, but we could even make you so powerful that you could crush Maya with a single finger. Oh? Kurumi's curiosity intensified. A treasure trove, you say? Tell me more. Well. Suta grabbed his laptop and set it down in front of Kurumi. It's hard to explain with just words. Let me introduce you to a few universes, then you'll understand. He opened a browser and searched for Dragon Ball. As he typed, he asked Kurumi, Kurumi, how strong do you think you are? Kurumi thought for a moment before answering. I may not be as strong as the first spirit, but among the spirits, I'm definitely one of the strongest. Strong? Didn't you get your ass kicked by Itsukeko Tori? You even lost a life. Kurumi's smile froze. She turned her head slowly and stared at Suta with dangerous amusement. Rokuhara-san. Care to repeat that? Cough. Ahem. Never mind. Suta quickly changed the subject, pointing at the laptop screen. Look at this. Dragon Ball has a very clear power system. Characters even have numerical power levels. For example, an ordinary human has a power level of less than 5. But someone with a power level of 20,000 can destroy an entire planet. Destroy a planet? Kurumi's eyes widened in shock. She had already watched the Data Live anime, so she knew in this real world, all of these fictional worlds were actually real. Which meant there really were people who could destroy entire planets. That level of raw power was beyond her imagination. That's right. Suta nodded. But here's the kicker, someone with a power level of 20,000? In Dragon Ball, that's considered a mook, just a disposable grunt. If one of those low-tier grunts came to Data Live, what do you think would happen? Kurumi. Her mind was already blown. Was Suta implying that she couldn't even beat a low-level grunt? Cough. Don't misunderstand, Suta quickly explained when he saw Kurumi's expression turning dark. I was just giving you a clear example so you could understand how ridiculously powerful some anime worlds are. The depths of the multiverse go far beyond your current understanding. That's why the travel card is so incredibly valuable. Before Kurumi could reply, Suta immediately pulled up another anime. This time, he searched for a certain magical index. Seeing another new world unfold on the screen, Kurumi's attention was drawn in again. This time. What is it? Another world with insanely deep lore. Suta pointed at the wiki entry and explained, this world features a mix of scientific superpowers and mysterious magic. But what I want to introduce you to are the magic gods. Magic gods? Are they actual deities? In a way, yes. Suta nodded. Magic gods are special sorcerers who have completely stepped into the realm of the divine. They possess limitless power and can override all laws of reality at will. They can reshape the world however they please. He paused for a moment before giving an example. Every single magic god has the power to casually smash galaxies together just by lifting a finger. Their abilities are borderline omnipotent. For example, take your wish. If just one magic god was willing to help you, then forget about traveling 30 years into the past. They could literally rewind your entire world's timeline by 30 years effortlessly. Hearing this, Kurumi's beautiful golden eye widened in pure shock. A flicker of disbelief flashed across her face, making her look oddly adorable. If they can do something that absurd, then calling them gods actually makes sense. After all, wasn't a god supposed to be omnipotent? So, are we going to find a magic god for help? Kurumi's voice trembled slightly with excitement. She was actually getting hopeful. However, before she could get too excited, Suta immediately shot her down with cold reality. No, why would we go looking for something that dangerous? He shook his head firmly. Those guys could wipe us out with a single breath. They're not running a charity and we have zero bargaining power. Let's not get ourselves killed. Suta had thought this through carefully. Yes, the multiverse was filled with god-tier beings. And yes, if one of them agreed to help, Kurumi's wish could be easily granted. But the real problem was, why would they help? And even if they did, how would he make sure they leave afterward? Chapter 11, you say no, but your body says yes. Suta firmly believed that for god-level beings like magic gods, destroying the world meant nothing to them. To them, blowing up a planet was child's play, so expecting rational, peaceful negotiations was pure delusion. For all he knew, if they got bored, They might just kill him for fun. So, if not magic gods, then who? Kurumi frowned slightly, confused. Which world should we go to? Suta smiled knowingly. I'm not saying we should target a specific world right away. I just wanted to show you how vast and unpredictable the multiverse is. We have to expand our thinking, stop limiting ourselves to just one world. Then he fell into deep thought. Truthfully, Suta hadn't watched that many anime. And his knowledge was pretty scattered. If he had to come up with a detailed plan right away, he wasn't sure where to start. So he followed the sacred rule of the internet: when in doubt, Google it. He searched for immortal characters in anime. His goal was to find a way for himself or Kurumi to obtain immortality. Soon, he found an article listing various immortal characters. Since Kurumi couldn't read Chinese, he read aloud as he scrolled: Kelty. From Durura. The motorcycle-riding, headless woman. But we don't know how she became immortal, and having a decapitated head sounds kind of disturbing. Pass. Alucard. From Helsing. If I ask him to turn me into a vampire, I doubt he'd just say yes. Pass. CC from Code Geass. Wait, how did she get her immortality again? I forgot. I'd have to rewatch it. Ugh, too much work. Pass. Tommy. Nope. Pass. Hohenheim. From Fullmetal Alchemist. The Philosopher's Stone can make people immortal, but creating one requires sacrificing an entire city. Hard pass. Suddenly Suta's eyes lit up as he spotted a name. Huh? Baccano. Has a whole group of immortals. Wait a minute, how did I forget about Baccano? His excitement surged as he locked onto his target. Baccano was an old anime, so he hadn't thought of it immediately. But its story centered around a group of people who gained immortality after drinking a special elixir of immortality. If we go to Baccano's world, obtaining immortality will be ridiculously easy. All we have to do is drink a glass of wine. And the best part? It had 0 side effects. I found it, Kurumi. Suta pointed excitedly at the screen, showing her the Baccano wiki page. Let's use the travel card to go to this world. Kurumi leaned closer, staring at the unfamiliar characters on the screen. Since she couldn't read Chinese, she simply asked, does this world have something that can help me? Yes. Suta nodded. It has a substance called Elixir of Immortality, a gift from a demon to humanity. Drinking it grants true immortality. You won't age, and you can't die by any external force. Essentially, your entire body's cells will gain consciousness, and no matter what happens, your body will always regenerate back to the moment you drank the elixir. Even if someone blows your head off with a gun, you'll instantly heal. The Elixir of Immortality. Kurumi murmured the name, her curiosity burning. Suta saw her interest and pushed further. Not only that, the Baccano world is one where you'd be completely overpowered. Even among those who drank the elixir, they're still just normal humans. Their only power is immortality. So there's no one who can stop us from obtaining it. Other worlds wouldn't be so easy. Most anime worlds with immortality tend to be incredibly dangerous. If something goes wrong, we could easily get ourselves killed. But this one? It's safe, easy, and guaranteed success. Kurumi nodded slowly, a rare smile forming on her lips. Era. That does sound tempting. Her gaze flickered with amusement. I like this plan, Suta-kun. After listening to Suta's detailed analysis, Kurumi saw no issues with it and simply said, I'm not very familiar with this kind of thing, so I'll just go along with your judgment. Alright. Suta's face lit up with excitement. Once we drink the elixir of immortality, the whole time reserve issue will be completely solved. And even if you don't want to drink it, that's fine too, you can just absorb my time instead. Suta glanced at the clock on his phone. It was already past 8 p.m. Let me refresh my memory by rewatching some episodes, then we can leave. However, before he could start, Kurumi gently shook her head and stopped him, speaking with a hint of exasperation. Suta, what you should be doing right now is finishing your dinner and getting some sleep. She pouted slightly and spoke in a soft, chiding tone. You haven't slept at all since last night, have you? I feel fine. Suta scratched his head awkwardly. That's not okay. Kurumi smiled, but for some reason, Suta could sense her firmness behind the words. As your friend, I can't just stand by and watch you neglect your health. After thinking for a moment, Suta decided to accept her suggestion. It was clear Kurumi was genuinely concerned for him. He quickly finished his meal, then took a shower. Afterward, he moved the sheets and blankets from his bedroom to the couch, then changed the bedding in his room. His sofa bed had cost him nearly 5,000 yuan when he bought it. It was a high and multifunctional one. Kurumi, I'll let you have the bedroom. I'm gonna get some rest first. We'll talk about traveling tomorrow. With that, Suta collapsed onto the couch and immediately fell into a deep sleep. Within a minute or two, The room was filled with soft snoring sounds. Seems like the exhaustion from staying up all night finally caught up with him. He said he wasn't tired, but his body tells a different story. Kurumi chuckled softly as she approached the couch. She gazed at Suta's slightly weary sleeping face, her lips curling into a gentle smile. She had already figured him out. Suta was the type of person who always thought about others before himself. Even though they had only known each other for 2 days, he always considered things from her perspective. Most of the things he offered to help with were things he voluntarily suggested. And from his eyes, Kurumi could tell he didn't expect anything in return. He simply wanted to help her. People like him are the ones who get taken advantage of the most. Kurumi sighed internally. Suta was the kind of person who couldn't bear to see others suffer. He had probably been taken advantage of many times in his life. But Kurumi didn't dislike people like him. In fact, she actually liked it quite a lot. Of course. Since he was her friend, she couldn't let him keep getting taken advantage of. From now on, she would have to keep an eye on the people in his social circle. Chapter 12, A Beautiful Girl. Playing with a gun in front of a man? Judging from how the multiversal friendship system worked, their friend group was bound to grow over time. If some ungrateful, manipulative person joined their ranks, Kurumi would have to watch out for Suta. I'll need to screen his future friends carefully. Kurumi chuckled softly at the thought. I can't believe I've already settled into the friend role this quickly. Friends, huh? She murmured the word to herself. If our plan works, then my lost friend Sawa Yamauchi should be revived due to the world's correction. But that also meant Kurumi would never be able to return to the date-alive world again. Otherwise, she would be erased by the timeline. I won't be able to see her again. That's kind of sad. Of course, if giving up her entire past was the price for achieving her wish, then it was worth it. The next morning, time to prepare. Suta woke up early the next morning. After freshening up, he immediately began rewatching Bakano to gather intel. Meanwhile, Kurumi prepared breakfast using what little food was left in the kitchen. Suta thanked her, then focused back on the anime. His goal wasn't to watch the entire series. He wasn't going there to sightsee, he just needed to grab the elixir and leave. So he skipped straight to episode 7, the key episode where the alchemists first obtained the elixir of immortality from a demon. Unlike the alchemy in Fullmetal Alchemist, the alchemists in Bakano were basically researchers. They weren't fighters. So they wouldn't pose any real threat to him and Kurumi. Well, they definitely wouldn't pose a threat to Kurumi. As for Suta's own combat skills, he was probably weaker than a goose. Once he confirmed the year and location, Suta closed his laptop and began discussing the plan with Kurumi. So, have you gathered all the info? Kurumi asked. Yeah. Suta nodded. The exact time and place we need to go is the year 1711, on the sailing ship Advina Avis in the Atlantic Ocean. Then, he continued, the system mentioned that while travel cards are one-time use, they allow us to specify the exact time and place we want to appear. The teleportation margin of error is pretty small, so we should be able to land directly in 1711. If we arrive after the plot has already started, it might be way harder to get our hands on the elixir. 1711, huh? Kurumi's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I have a feeling we'll run into something interesting. However, Suta shook his head. I think you'll be disappointed. We're teleporting onto a ship in the middle of the ocean. Other than seawater and an old wooden boat, you won't see much of the era. That's a shame. Kurumi's excitement faded slightly. But she didn't dwell on it. Their main goal wasn't sightseeing. They couldn't afford to get distracted. After explaining the details of their destination, Suta didn't delay any further. He pulled out his system phone. One handy feature about it was that even if you forgot where you put it, the moment you needed it, it would magically appear somewhere within reach. Usually, that meant inside his pocket. Alright, I'm about to use Just as he was about to activate the travel card, he suddenly felt something soft pressing against his chest. Without him noticing, Kurumi had wrapped her arms around him, gazing up at him with a mischievous smile. A faint fragrance drifted in the air, and her warm breath brushed against his chest. This time, let me go first, Kurumi whispered playfully. Otherwise, Suta-kun, you might get too embarrassed again. Such a pure-hearted boy. Suta's face remained completely blank. Who was the one blushing last time? Still, he chose not to call her out on it, letting her save face. Instead, he wordlessly returned her embrace. Kurumi's body was soft. It felt really comfortable to hold her. System, activate the travel card. Please specify time and location, the year 1711 Bakano. World aboard the sailing ship Advina Avis, somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. The moment Suta finished speaking, a brilliant white light enveloped them. The transfer began. A sudden crisis. They were in the ocean? Sea cold. It was freezing. The moment the feeling of weightlessness disappeared, Suta was hit by a bone-chilling cold that wrapped around his entire body. At some point, he had let go of Kurami. His instincts kicked in, and his legs began kicking downward, trying to find the ground. But there was no ground. Before he could even react, a liquid substance rushed into his nose and mouth, making him choke violently. Only then did Suta realize the truth: he had fallen into the ocean. And the water was freezing cold, as if it were the middle of winter. His survival instincts took over, and he kicked his legs like a frog, propelling himself upward until his head finally broke the surface. Suta spat out seawater and coughed a few times before finally taking a deep breath. Then, he looked around. Yep. He was in the middle of the ocean. The sea was calm, but there was no land in sight. Just endless water. Suta-kun, I don't see any ships. Kurami's voice suddenly came from nearby. Suta turned his head and saw that Kurami had also surfaced. She puffed her cheeks slightly and spat out some seawater. Her long twin-tailed hair and elegant dress were completely soaked, clinging tightly to her body. Her exquisite face showed a hint of irritation. Honestly, the system's margin of error is way too big. We were supposed to appear on the ship, not in the ocean. Exactly. This is absolute bullshit. Suta also had a lot of complaints about this shoddy teleportation job. No choice, then. Let's find the ship first. Kurami let out a small sigh, then rose into the air. At some point, she had already switched back into her signature crimson spirit dress, with her wet hair tied back into twin tails again. Even so, her hair was still damp. Zafke eel. Kurami called out. In an instant, distorted light rippled around her, and behind her appeared a massive, 2-meter-tall clock face. Kurami raised her right hand, summoning an elegant, antique-style flintlock pistol. The weapon absorbed energy from the clock, forming a glowing number on its face. Then Kurami pointed the gun at her own head and pulled the trigger. Bang! Suta watched expressionlessly. Even though he had seen this happen countless times in the anime, watching a real person do it right in front of him was kind of terrifying. After the gunshot, Kurami's entire body transformed. Her hair was no longer wet, her clothes were completely dry, and she looked exactly the same as before they had fallen into the ocean. That was fourth bullet Della, right? Suta asked, still kicking his legs to stay afloat. Kurami's spirit angel, Zafke eel, had 12 different bullets, each with unique time-related abilities. Among them Daruto, the fourth bullet, allowed time reversal on any target it hit. Kurami often used it to restore herself after taking damage. Just like now, she had reversed herself back to a state before falling into the water. Chapter 13, Summoning the Demon Omai? Rokuhara-kun, you sure know a lot about me. Kurami's golden eye sparkled with amusement. Of course, I even know your 3S what? And nothing. Nothing at all. Suta shut his mouth immediately. Kurami smiled as she watched him struggle in the water. It seems like I'll have to be the one to carry you through the air. With that, she slowly descended toward him. As she got closer overhead, Suta glanced up and was immediately blessed with a breathtaking view. Kurami's long skirt billowed in the wind, revealing sleek black garter stockings, a glimpse of creamy white thighs, and a delicate lace-trimmed undergarment, both adorable and enticing. Suta rarely blushed, but this time, his face burned bright red. He immediately looked down. Kurami to Kaizaki.jpg, you saw, didn't you? Kurami's teasing voice suddenly sounded right next to his ear. It was an unavoidable circumstance. Completely out of my control. Suta's heart nearly stopped as he instinctively defended himself. At some point, Kurami had appeared behind him, casually grabbing both of his arms and lifting him out of the water. Then without hesitation, she fired a fourth bullet at him. A soft golden glow surrounded Suta. His clothes instantly dried, his body was completely restored, and he was back to his pre-teleportation state. Now he wouldn't catch a cold from being in the freezing ocean. Rokuhara-kun, tell me. Kurami whispered, still holding him from behind. Her soft breath tickled his ear. Did you like what you saw under my skirt? Suta froze up. Was this a trap question? He had no idea what the correct answer was. Never mind, Kurami chuckled. If it's you, I don't really mind. Her voice was playful yet seductive. After all, I still owe you a kiss, don't I? Cough. Suta nearly choked on air. He quickly changed the subject. Ahem. Good thing you can fly. If we had to swim to find the ship, we'd probably have to give up and go home. Kurami let out a soft giggle but didn't push further. Instead, she increased her altitude and began scanning their surroundings. The dense fog made visibility terrible. I can't see anything. Maybe we should fly around the area, Suta suggested. He frowned at the thick mist, then added, the system said the teleportation error isn't too big, so the ship should be nearby. It's probably just hidden in the fog. Alright, then. Kurami nodded, accepting his plan. She tightened her hold on Suta, then began flying in circles, keeping a low altitude to avoid getting lost in the fog. Meanwhile, Suta was internally cursing the system. This damn system. The travel card is so unreliable. What the hell is this nonsense? If Kurumi wasn't here, and if he had fallen into the ocean alone, he'd be royally screwed. Well, okay. He wouldn't die. He could still choose to return to his world. But that would mean wasting the travel card. And that pissed him off. I found it, Suta. Kurumi's voice suddenly carried a hint of excitement. Her vision was far superior to a normal human's. After flying for a bit, she had finally spotted a sailing vessel in the distance. Since there was only one ship around, it had to be the Advina Avis. Suta let out a relieved sigh. Alright. Let's go. A lonely ship in the vast ocean. As nightfall approached, the gentle waves of the ocean broke the silence. A lone sailing ship drifted across the calm sea. A few oil lamps flickered on the deck, but there wasn't a single soul in sight. This ship was called the Advina Avis, also known as Strange Omens. On board, dozens of alchemists had gathered. All of them shared a common goal, the elixir of immortality. They had embarked on this long journey with only one purpose: to create a potion that would grant eternal life. This had always been the greatest dream of alchemists. On board the ship, the leader of the alchemists was Msa, a man willing to go to any lengths to obtain the elixir of immortality, even if it meant summoning a demon. To his fellow alchemists, summoning a demon was an unforgivable taboo, a betrayal of their principles, a step too far into the realm of black magic. Because of this, Msa and his companions had to abandon their homeland, leaving behind their old lives, sailing deep into the ocean, beyond the reach of watchful eyes. Stealth infiltration. When Suta and Kurumi arrived at the ship, they didn't reveal themselves immediately. After all, Kurumi had her shadow space. Shadow manipulation. This unique ability not only let her turn invisible, but also allowed her to store clones, imprison targets, and even teleport herself and others. Using this ability, Suta and Kurumi infiltrated the ship's interior, completely unnoticed by anyone on board. They had no intention of introducing themselves or making conversation. After all, how would they even explain their presence? They couldn't exactly say, "Oh, we just swam here." So, instead they chose the sneaky approach. Inside the shadow space, Suta turned to Kurumi and asked Kurumi, "Can you hear what's happening outside?" "Of course." "And the voices are being translated into Japanese." Since Kurumi controlled the shadow space, she could still listen in on the outside world with ease. She smiled slightly and remarked, "It seems like the translation feature isn't limited to friend group members. That'll make things much easier." "What's the situation outside?" Suta asked. "Let me listen." A large group of people is gathering in one location. They're discussing someone named Msa. Suta's eyes lit up. Msa is the one who summons the demon. He's the first person to obtain the elixir of immortality. Where are they gathering? We need to follow them. Hearing this, Kurumi activated her shadow space's teleportation ability, secretly trailing behind the largest group of people. The ritual begins. Before long, they arrived at a large chamber inside the ship. Even with dozens of people inside, the room still didn't feel crowded. At some point, Kurumi had swiped 2 black cloaks from the ship's storage, handing one to Suta. She whispered softly, "We're going out, Suta. Put this on so we don't stand out." After pulling on their cloaks and pulling up their hoods, the two blended into the back of the crowd. The dimly lit chamber was filled with the flickering glow of oil lamps, casting shifting shadows across the wooden walls. Most of the people in the room wore similar cloaks, so no one noticed Suta and Kurumi's arrival. At the front of the room, 3 men stood over a wooden floor, carving strange symbols with their daggers. Suta craned his neck, trying to get a better look. The carvings formed a twisted geometric pattern, a design eerily similar to magic circles from fantasy stories. Once the carving was complete, one of the 3 men stepped forward. He was a bespectacled man with an air of intellect, a figure that matched Suta's memory. It was Msa. Chapter 14. There's always a way to convince you. Under the intense gaze of the gathered alchemists, Msa spoke in a low, solemn voice. "Before we begin the ritual, allow me to share a secret. The man who taught me this summoning ritual was once my senior apprentice. From my grandfather's time until today, he has never aged. That's because, 300 years ago, he summoned a demon and successfully obtained the elixir of immortality. That man is still alive somewhere in this world today, forever unchanging." The entire room fell into dead silence. All attention was firmly locked on Msa. Even Msa himself felt his heartbeat quicken. As he stood on the edge of the unknown, a sense of fear crept into his mind. But then his gaze hardened, filled with determination. "My friends, I do not know if what we are about to do is right or wrong. But as they say, all things in existence are interconnected. The demon we seek may not be evil. Even if an alchemist steps into the realm of black magic, its principles remain the same. If everything is for the sake of obtaining the elixir of immortality, then let the ritual begin. With that, Mza turned away from the crowd and stepped into the center of the magic circle. The two men beside him followed, standing around a glass container filled with a clear liquid. That must be the unfinished elixir, Suta muttered. It's missing the gift from the demon. Mza then took on the appearance of a devout priest, his expression serious and focused. Then, in a calm and reverent voice, he began chanting the summoning spell. I summon thee, thou art sky, and thou art earth. Thou art night, and thou art time. Thou art shadow, and thou art light. Thou art virtue, and thou art sin. Thou art seen, and thou art unseen. Thou art love, and thou art hate. Thou that is enough. Boom. A deep, guttural voice echoed through the entire room. It was a voice so distorted, so unnatural, that no one could determine its origin. It was everywhere, and nowhere. It resonated from the walls, yet it also whispered directly into their ears. The oil lamps flickered violently, casting wild, dancing shadows across the wooden planks. The silhouettes of dozens of figures swayed like phantoms, blurring between light and darkness. An eerie, suffocating presence filled the air. No one dared to move. No one dared to breathe. Even Suta standing at the very back felt his body tense up. He leaned toward Kurumi, whispering, "Be careful. The demon's true nature is unknown. It never physically appears, it only watches. It's a mystery even in the original story. However, it only gave the elixir to humans out of curiosity. It probably won't attack us." Kurumi nodded, her guard fully raised. If anything went wrong, she was ready to grab Suta and flee the ship immediately. At that moment the demon's voice echoed once more, "That's enough. Your summoning chants are just repetitive nonsense." A low, guttural voice echoed throughout the dimly lit chamber. It wasn't coming from any particular direction, it was everywhere, as if seeping into their very minds. "I have been listening to your conversations this whole time. I already know what all of you are thinking. You fear the unknown, yet you call upon me. You claim to seek eternal life, yet you cower in uncertainty. You do not need to speak my name, for I have never liked being called a demon. But it doesn't matter. I know what it is you desire. You wish to learn the secrets of immortality. Very well, but I shall tell only you, Msa." The entire room fell into stunned silence. The gathered alchemists held their breath in nervous anticipation. Even Msa himself, the one who had led the summoning, looked tense and uneasy. He hesitated for a moment before asking, "Why only me?" The demon did not answer. But Suta, knowing the full story, understood exactly why. It's a test. The demon is deliberately sowing discord. By creating inequality, it is ensuring that conflict will arise. After all, the entire chain of events in Bakano started because of this very moment. The demon's true interest wasn't in granting immortality, it was in watching human nature unfold. This was why the demon created a rule: those who drank the elixir of immortality could devour each other. It was a twisted, cruel experiment. Drink it. If you wish to know everything, then drink. At some point, Mza had already lifted the glass container. Inside was the liquid the demon had enchanted. It was no longer just a simple alchemical formula. Now, it was the true elixir of immortality, the so-called grand panacea. The demon's whisper filled the chamber once more, "Drink it. Then you shall become immortal. Go on. If you wish to learn the truth, drink." Every pair of eyes in the room was locked on Mza's trembling hands. Their stares burned with a dangerous hunger, like starving wolves watching prey just beyond their reach. Yet no one moved. No one took the first step. Even Mza himself hesitated. Because no one knew if this elixir was truly a miracle or a deadly poison. The room remained in uneasy silence until an elderly man suddenly stepped forward. His beard was unkempt, his eyes sunken with age. Unlike the younger alchemists, he did not have the luxury of time. For him, this was his only chance. He reached for the bottle, ready to drink, but then wait. A shout rang out from the back of the room. The crowd parted, revealing Suta and Kurumi pushing their way forward. Suta stepped toward Msa, his voice filled with urgency. "You're seriously going to trust the words of a demon? Have you people lost your minds? What if this thing is poisoned?" The crowd stirred uncomfortably at his words. Even Msa himself hesitated. Suta took a deep breath and continued, his tone righteous and unwavering. "But if this is truly the elixir of immortality, then I will be the first to drink it. Let me test it for you. If I survive, then you can drink it afterward." His declaration sent ripples of uncertainty through the gathered alchemists. But Msa, narrowing his eyes, finally asked, "Wait a minute. Who are you? I don't recall ever seeing you on this ship. And who is the girl beside you?" Suta quickly responded, "The details don't matter. The important thing is that I am willing to test the elixir." Msa took a step back, gripping the container tightly. No. It does matter. Who are you? Ugh. Fine. Suta sighed dramatically, then lowered his hood, revealing his face. My identity doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a volunteer. Wouldn't you rather have someone test it first? But before Mza could respond, the old man from earlier snarled in irritation. Humphrey. Why should some outsider get the first taste? This elixir is not meant for you. You're just some sneaky little brat who somehow snuck onto our ship. Several other alchemists quickly echoed his sentiment. He's right. We don't know who you are. Seize them. Find out what they're planning. Before Suta could react, the entire group of alchemists suddenly rushed toward them. Suta sighed inwardly. It was indeed not that easy. His negotiation skills needed to be improved. Chapter 15, nothing more thrilling than talking big and running away. Suta sighed. Well. I tried. Turning to Kurumi, he simply said, I'll leave this to you. Kurumi grinned, an amused sparkle in her heterochromatic eyes. Of course, Suta-kun. Now, let me handle this. With a graceful motion, Kurumi lifted her hood, revealing her astonishingly beautiful face. The rushing alchemists immediately froze in place, their expressions shifting from anger to utter infatuation. Before them stood a girl of impossible beauty, with porcelain skin, ruby red lips, and a smile that was both charming and dangerous. At that moment many of the alchemists began having second thoughts. If we have to capture her, then maybe I should be the one to interrogate her. Yeah. She should be handled gently. By me. We could question her. But also treat her like a guest. Kurumi, noticing their hungry expressions, merely laughed softly, her voice carrying a hint of mockery. Then, with a simple flick of her wrist, an invisible force spread through the room. The lamplight flickered, the air grew heavy, a dark presence filled the chamber. And then the alchemists suddenly realized something terrifying. They couldn't move. Their bodies refused to obey. Their faces twisted in shock, their limbs frozen in place. Their eyes darted wildly, filled with pure, paralyzing fear. Kurumi's smile widened. Now then. Gentlemen. Shall we begin? A heavy, oppressive force filled the room. A strange presence spread through the space, making the entire ship feel distorted. A peculiar phenomenon had taken hold. City of Devouring Time. This was Tokaizaki Kurumi's domain, a time-manipulating barrier that forcibly drains the lifespan of anyone caught within its range. And it also rendered the bodies of its victims incredibly heavy, making it impossible to move. Ugh! Suta felt his head spin. Even he was affected by the barrier. Kurumi quickly noticed this. With a graceful flick of her hand, she adjusted the barrier's parameters, cancelling out its effects on Suta alone. But at that exact moment, no. Suta's gaze snapped toward Msa, just in time to see the bottle in his trembling hands wobbling dangerously. The precious elixir of immortality was on the verge of spilling. Without hesitation, Suta rushed forward and snatched the bottle away, holding it tightly against his chest. Only after securing the bottle did he breathe a sigh of relief. That was way too close. Meanwhile Msa, still trapped within the barrier, could only glare at him furiously. His jaw clenched, his body too weak to even speak properly. And around them several alchemists had already collapsed under the barrier's effects. Suta clicked his tongue and sighed. TSK. Why do you all have to make us resort to violence? Wouldn't it have been easier if we just sat down together and shared a drink? A cocky smirk spread across his lips. He was really enjoying this moment. There was something oddly satisfying about taunting people who couldn't do anything back. It was like getting the last word in an argument and then walking away victorious. But when he glanced down at the bottle in his hands, his expression stiffened. Because up close it really did look like a chamber pot. Ugh! The things I do for immortality. Gritting his teeth, Suta forced himself to chug down several gulps of the elixir. He drank about a cup's worth in total. That was more than enough. Even a single sip granted eternal life. And just as he was lowering the bottle, a deep, chilling voice suddenly echoed through the room. Oh? So an unnatural being has entered the fray? The demon's voice rumbled like thunder, its tone carrying a strange amusement. I sense it. The power to devour time. Ha 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 ha. How fascinating. A creature masquerading as a human girl. Interesting. Very interesting. At those words Suta's entire body stiffened. A chill ran down his spine. Shit. The demon had taken an interest in Kurumi. And that was bad news. No one knew the true extent of the demon's power. It could be stronger than Kurumi or weaker. But either way, now that Suta had obtained the elixir, there was absolutely no reason to stick around and find out. Kurumi. We need to go. But it was already too late. The air around them suddenly shifted, it thickened, became dense. It coiled around the room, moving like invisible ropes closing in on Kurumi. The demon wasn't physically present. But its will alone was enough to manipulate reality. Ah. You're underestimating me quite a bit, aren't you? Kurami's gold and crimson eyes gleamed with mischief. Even as the air itself moved to restrain her, she didn't panic, she simply smiled. The next moment a powerful surge of spirit energy erupted from her body like a hammer slamming into glass. It shattered the surrounding air pressure in an instant. Boom. The entire space trembled violently. The sensation was eerily similar to a spatial quake. And for the first time the demon's voice quivered with excitement. Interesting. Very interesting. It was excited. Like a scientist observing a fascinating experiment. The shaking stopped, but instead of returning to normal, the entire space began to solidify. Suta felt a crushing weight pressed down on his body. The air itself felt like it had turned into solid steel. He had never felt anything this suffocating before. Shit. This thing can manipulate space? This is bad. But just as the pressure reached its peak, Suta forced his body forward. He ignored the crushing weight, and lunged toward Kurami. Kurami. Kurami whipped around, their eyes met, and in an instant she understood his intention. Without hesitation, she abandoned her counterattack, and instead she struck the space between them with her power. A shockwave blasted through the room, disrupting the demon's influence. For just a split second, the pressure lifted. And that was all the time Suta needed. He threw himself at Kurami, wrapping his arms tightly around her waist. Their bodies pressed together, a warmth amidst the cold, suffocating space. Then system. Return. A brilliant white light erupted from his phone. It engulfed them instantly, ignoring the spatial restraints, and teleporting them away in an instant. As the light faded, they vanished completely from that world. And left the demon behind. Reality. As soon as Suta felt solid ground beneath his feet, he opened his eyes and saw the familiar living room. He exhaled in relief. Phew. That was close. Suta released Kurami from his grasp. The tension from their escape had left his throat dry. So he headed to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, and returned to Kurami. He then drank 1 glass. And immediately drank the second one too. Kurami had assumed the second glass was for her. But before the situation could become awkward, she changed the subject. That demon was quite something. Suta nodded, setting the empty glasses down. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a being that can just casually hand out immortality. Of course, it's not normal. But he smirked. It doesn't matter whether that demon was stronger than you or not. We're done with that world. Suta leaned back, stretching. That thing is stuck in the world of Bakano. Just like the magic gods are stuck in a certain magical index. There's no way it can follow us into the real world. Suta was fairly certain about this. Interdimensional travel wasn't easy. Even cosmic-level beings were often bound to their own dimensions. That demon was no exception. However, his tone shifted slightly. That said, it's a shame. He sighed. I didn't expect the demon to interfere. You never got to drink the elixir yourself. Kurami, however, simply shook her head. She didn't seem bothered at all. Instead, she gave Suta a curious look. Suta. You're immortal now, right? She tilted her head, watching him with genuine interest. Do you feel any different? Suta shook his head. Nope. No difference at all. Guess I'll have to test it out. With that, he stood up and walked back to the kitchen. This time, he didn't return with water. Instead, he came back holding a kitchen knife. The elixir of immortality works by locking a person's physical state at the moment they drink it. Even if I get injured, my body will automatically revert to how it was the instant I drank the elixir. The only way to kill an immortal is if another immortal places their right hand on their head and wills them to be absorbed. That's the one and only weakness. As he spoke, Suta gripped the knife and positioned it over his left hand. He hesitated for a moment, then turned to Kurami. You wanna do it? Kurami's eyes widened slightly. You're actually serious? Suta nodded. I need to be sure my body is actually immortal. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel comfortable letting you absorb my time later. He offered the knife to Kurami. But she immediately shook her head. Absolutely not. She refused outright. Cutting off her friend's hand was a line she simply wouldn't cross. At most, she'd just watch. Chapter 16, Immortality. Seeing Kurami's reaction, Suta sighed and turned his attention back to the knife. He positioned the blade over his left index finger. Then after mustering his courage for a full minute, he made a small cut. A sharp sting ran through his finger. A tiny bead of blood formed, then dripped onto the floor. But then something strange happened. The blood suddenly reversed its motion. Like time rewinding, the droplet lifted off the ground, flew back into his wound, and his skin sealed itself instantly. Suta blinked in amazement. Then he grinned. Looks like I'm officially an immortal. On the other hand, Kurami stared blankly at him, her eye twitching slightly. That's it? Suta tilted his head. Huh? Kurami's expression darkened slightly. You made such a big deal about testing your immortality. I thought you were going to cut off your whole hand. Suta gave her a look. Are you insane? He rolled his eyes. The elixir doesn't block pain, you know. Why the hell would I go that far? I'm not a masochist. Kurumi sighed and muttered to herself. Well, at least that's reassuring. If you had cut off your hand without hesitation, I might have started questioning if you were actually human. Satisfied with his small-scale experiment, Suta decided to conduct further tests. He tried pulling out a few strands of hair. The hair instantly regrew. He clipped his nails. The cut-off parts reformed immediately. Everything functioned exactly as the lore described. His entire body had become a self-correcting state. It rejected any changes and reverted to its original form. Suta chuckled. Damn. This means I can eat as much as I want and never gain weight. Kurumi, meanwhile, just watched silently. She was half amused and half exasperated. Can't get fat even if I try. As the experiments continued, Suta suddenly felt a wave of relief wash over him. Thinking back, he was really lucky that after Kurumi pulled him out of the ocean, she used the fourth bullet to restore him. After all, if he had been soaked in freezing seawater for too long, it would have been impossible for him not to catch a cold. And if he had drunk the elixir of immortality while sick, wouldn't he have stayed sick forever? Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So, it looks like you really won't get hurt or die anymore, huh? Kurumi watched as Suta tested himself over and over again, letting out an earnest sigh of amazement. The world of anime was truly insane. It could grant a normal person immortality without any cost. No, I think I can still die. Suta immediately refuted her conclusion. Oh? Kurumi tilted her head curiously, clearly not understanding. How so? Suta explained, after thinking about it, I realized my body's regeneration is kind of similar to Angel Queen X's divine body from King of Gods. Of course, it's only similar in terms of reconstruction. I'm nowhere near that level. King of Gods? Angel Queen? Divine body? Kurumi was confused by the unfamiliar names, tilting her head gully. Seeing this, Suta immediately pulled out his laptop and searched for Angel Queen Xa. He then pointed at the character's wiki page. Xa is a character from this series. She has something called the Divine Body. One of its abilities allows her molecular structure to automatically reposition and reconstruct itself. So even if she gets chopped into 17 pieces or even ground into dust, she can still fully restore herself. After hearing this, Kurumi blinked in amazement. That's an incredible ability. Yeah, it is. But it's not true immortality. Suta continued, for example, in my case, only my cells are conscious and capable of automatically reforming. But if someone destroyed every single cell in my body, wouldn't I still die? Immortality is only relative. If someone obliterated him on a cellular level, he would still cease to exist. A nuclear explosion, for instance, could annihilate his entire molecular structure, killing him instantly. Alright, let's wrap up this topic. Suta turned to Kurumi and pointed at himself. Try absorbing my time. Theoretically, since my body is now permanently fixed in time, it doesn't matter if 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 years pass, I'll always stay like this. I should have infinite time to give. Kurumi hesitated. Absorbing time from others was not a pleasant experience. More importantly, Suta had only confirmed his regeneration, not whether he was immune to aging. If something went wrong, she had no way to reverse it. Seeing her hesitation, Suta reassured her. Relax, I'll be fine. Probably. Probably. Okay, I'm not completely sure. Suta thought for a moment, then made a reasonable suggestion. How about this? Start by absorbing 2 years from me. If my body shows any changes, stop immediately. If there's no change, we'll slowly increase the amount 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. That way, we minimize the risk. Kurumi's eyes lit up. That's actually a great idea. Let's do that. After mentally preparing themselves, they began the time absorption experiment. Suta had no mental pressure at all. After all, he fully believed in the elixir's power, and losing time didn't sound like something he'd even be able to feel. But Kurumi, she was under immense pressure. What Suta didn't know was that during the long moment of silence, Kurumi had been lost in memories. She had recalled their first meeting the night when she had absorbed time from those thugs who tried to assault her. The twisted, grotesque sight of their dying bodies. Their limbs convulsing, their veins bulging and bursting through their translucent skin. Beneath that thin, stretched flesh, their organs and bones had liquefied into a sludgy mess. Finally splurt. The fragile skin ruptured, exploding into torrents of blood. Deep crimson liquid splattered across the ground, instantly turning into blackened crusts. At the same time, black-red mist seeped into the floor, absorbed into the abyss. She had done this countless times. Yet, no matter how often she witnessed it, she always felt a deep disgust. And that disgust, always turned into hatred toward herself as a spirit. Hatred toward the first spirit. When? When would she finally wash away her sins? When would she finally erase this madness? Kurumi took a deep breath. Looking at Suda, who was willingly offering up his time for her, she felt an indescribable warmth in her chest. Maybe this time, she could finally achieve her goal. Because if she failed again, then even if her true purpose was to save people, she wasn't sure she could handle carrying more blood on her hands. Chapter 17, Tokaizaki Kurumi is a juice-extracting princess. Alright. Let's begin. Kurumi activated her city of devouring time and began absorbing Suta's time. The moment he was shrouded by the barrier, Suta felt as if his entire body had frozen. His limbs became unbearably heavy, unable to move. He couldn't even lift a finger. Suddenly the cocky confidence he'd gained from becoming immortal instantly shrank. His heart turned cold. Shit. Even if I can't die, I'm still completely powerless. Even if his body was indestructible, he was still just a weakling. If someone dumped him into molten iron and sank him to the ocean floor, he wouldn't be able to resist at all. He'd just be trapped in total darkness forever, his mind slowly spiraling into insanity. Yeah, I should probably stay low-key from now on. It seemed that even as an immortal, he still needed to be careful. As Suta was lost in his thoughts, Kurumi finally breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. No side effects. In the end, her worries were completely unnecessary. After absorbing 2 years from Suta, his body remained exactly the same. His skin looked just as healthy, he didn't lose a single hair, and he felt no discomfort at all. It was as if nothing had happened. I told you not to worry. Suta shrugged indifferently. Go ahead and keep going this time, take 5 years. Kurumi nodded. City of Devouring Time activated again. The barrier devoured another 5 years from Suta. And yet he remained completely unchanged. Seeing this, Kurumi gradually increased the amount. 10 years. 20 years. 50 years. 100 years. 200 years. Reality check, infinite equals instantaneous. Suta had a brilliant plan. Since he was now immortal, he could supply Kurumi with unlimited time to use as she pleased. But both of them had overlooked one crucial detail: City of Devouring Time has a speed limit. While Suta's time was indeed limitless, at least, as far as he could tell, Kurumi's absorption rate wasn't nearly as fast as they had assumed. Absorbing 100 years took her several minutes. As a result, the time collection process became way longer than expected. With no other choice, Kurumi ended up moving in with Suta. Every day, they dedicated 12 hours to absorbing time. The rest of the day was spent eating, sleeping, or going out for walks whenever Kurumi felt mentally exhausted. And so, as time passed, Kurumi's juice extraction technique became smoother and more efficient. At first, what took her several minutes now only required a single minute. During this time, Kurumi also learned about Suta's situation in this world. And in one simple phrase: no parents, no car, no house. Orphaned at a young age, he grew up in an orphanage and became completely independent at 16. Although he had been accepted into a good university, he chose not to attend. Instead, he donated most of his income back to the orphanage that raised him for several years. A genuinely kind person. But because of his nice guy, Yasashi, personality, he had been taken advantage of countless times. After being betrayed by people he once trusted, he fell into a depressive slump and quit his job. Now, he survived by doing freelance work, writing game cheats and designing custom game maps for small commissions. Basically, he had completely withdrawn from society and lived in his own little world. Right now, Kurumi was the only friend he had. After realizing this, Kurumi couldn't help but feel a little smug. And a little happy. Hee. I'd like to keep it that way. The daily routine of an immortal and a spirit: eat, sleep, extract time. To outsiders, their life might seem boring and repetitive. But in this simple and quiet routine, 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. How much time have you stored? One bright afternoon, Suta and Kurumi were sitting in a cafe, drinking coffee. Leaning back against his seat, Suta lazily soaked in the warm sunlight. Across from him, Kurumi sat gracefully, her elegant posture as charming as ever. With a teasing smile, Suta asked, "So, Kurumi, exactly how much time have you stored up?" He took a sip of his coffee, then jokingly added, "I feel like you're gonna drain me dry soon." Kurumi's lips curved into a playful smirk. She licked her soft, cherry-pink lips, then dragged out her words seductively, "Oh my. But I haven't even gotten serious yet, Suta. A man shouldn't say he can't handle it, you know." Her sultry, teasing tone sent shivers down Suta's spine. "Okay, I give up. You're too good at this." He had no chance against a pro-level flirt like Kurumi. Ahem. "So, how much time have you actually stored up?" Kurumi tapped her chin, then casually answered, "Around 2 million years, give or take." PFFFT. Suta almost spit out his coffee. 2 million years? I had that much time to take. Kurumi giggled at his shocked reaction. Indeed, and yet, your time supply is completely bottomless. The elixir of immortality certainly lives up to its name. Hearing this, Suta rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Why do you even need that much time? Kurumi sighed softly, her voice tinged with helplessness. I don't really want this much. But traveling back in time with the 12 bullets consumes an insane amount of time. Time is way less efficient than spirit energy Reiryaku. Hearing this, Suta frowned. Time. Spirit energy. He quickly recalled some details from Data Live's plot and suddenly, it all made sense. Kurumi had killed over 10,000 people. Even if she only absorbed 10 years per person, that was over 100,000 years of stored time. And yet she still couldn't travel back 30 years. But spirit energy was a whole different story. In Data Live, Origami Tobiichi, after becoming a spirit, once asked Kurumi to send her back in time. Kurumi absorbed Origami's spirit energy and in one shot, sent her 5 years into the past. If one spirit's energy could send someone 5 years back, then traveling 30 years back would only require 6 spirits worth of energy. Holy crap. Compared to spirit energy, time is absolute garbage. No wonder it had taken Kurumi this long to gather enough time. Suta finally understood. No wonder Kurumi had been absorbing his time for so long. You should have enough time stored up to go back 30 years now, right? Suta asked. Yes, and I even have quite a surplus. I won't say any more words of thanks, but know that I will remember this favor, Suta, Kurumi said, her gaze soft as she continued. I plan to use the extra time for an experiment. Experiment? Suta asked curiously. What kind of experiment? Kurumi explained in detail. When I go back in time and change something, we don't actually know how fast the world line will shift. So before traveling back 30 years to erase my Otakamiya's existence, I need to test it first. I'll go back 2 or 3 years, make a small but significant change, and measure how long it takes for the world line to fully shift. As soon as Suta heard this, he instantly understood Kurumi's reasoning. Testing the delay in changes was absolutely necessary. If they didn't know the exact timing, Kurumi might erase my Otakamiya too quickly, and before Suta could pull her into his world, she might disappear from existence entirely due to the world's correction speed. Chapter 18, The Second Invitation Letter. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Suta nodded firmly. Just make sure to tell me what you find out. Of course. Suddenly, Kurumi leaned in close, very close. Their eyes locked at an intimate distance. The corners of her lips curved slightly upward. After all, Suta-kun would be very reluctant to see me disappear, wouldn't he? They were so close, he could feel her breath on his skin. A faint fragrance lingered in the air. Her soft breathing made his face feel ticklish, and a hint of embarrassment rose inside him. Was he being flirted with? As a friend, of course, I wouldn't want you to disappear, Suta replied. Oh my? Just a friend? Kurumi's gaze turned sultry like dew-kissed petals on a summer night as she stared straight into his eyes. Suta-kun, I actually wouldn't mind taking things a little further, you know. Suta? Wait a damn minute, what does that mean? Suta couldn't tell if Kurumi was flirting or just teasing him for fun. Her thoughts were too unpredictable. Just as he was trying to figure out how to respond, a cold, mechanical voice suddenly echoed in his head, the system's voice. However, this time, it didn't sound aloud, it seemed to be in private communication mode, directly transmitting into his brain. Tokizaki Kurumi's friendship level with the host has reached the required threshold. The host will now randomly receive one of Tokizaki Kurumi's abilities. Random ability selection in progress. Congratulations, host. You have acquired the ability, Time Manipulation. Suta's expression froze. Wait, let me process this. So because Kurumi's friendship level increased, and it hit a certain system requirement, he just randomly obtained one of her abilities. This is a thing? So I can get stronger just by making friends? Since the system was speaking directly in his mind, Suta tried responding with a silent thought. System. Can we communicate mentally like this? Yes, oh damn, it works. So the system had all these hidden functions, he just hadn't discovered them yet. What's the deal with this friendship level system? How does it work? This is an exclusive benefit for the host. When a friends group member reaches a certain friendship level with the host can randomly acquire one of their abilities. Tokizaki Kurumi's abilities include Spirit Energy, Shadow Space, City of Devouring Time, and Time Manipulation. The system has granted the host Time Manipulation, so making friends really does make me stronger? Suta just went from an immortal weakling to an immortal weakling with superpowers. Suta. Kurumi's voice suddenly pulled him back to reality. Looking up, he saw Kurumi staring at him with genuine concern. She waved a hand in front of his face. I'm fine, Suta quickly reassured her. I was just thinking about something. What were you thinking about? Kurumi asked. Suta hesitated. He wanted to share this incredible news with her. After all, he genuinely trusted Kurumi as a friend. But Suta realized something important. If the friends group kept expanding, and new people joined in the future, then revealing this system function could have unintended consequences. What if people thought he was only befriending them to steal their abilities? What if someone mistrusted him and tried to distance themselves from him? After considering the potential social fallout, Suta made his decision. This will remain my secret for now. Everyone has a secret or two, and keeping this one shouldn't be a problem. Once the system's shop opens, he'll be able to use the lottery feature. At that point, if his time manipulation ability gets exposed, he could simply say it was something he won in a random draw. Perfect? That's the plan. After settling his thoughts, Suta looked at Kurumi and said, You're planning to go back soon, aren't you? Kurumi smiled. Oh my, you saw through me? She nodded gently. I have more than enough stored time now, so I'm planning to return today and begin my test to determine the world line shift delay. Hearing this, Suta's expression showed a hint of reluctance. And it wasn't just for show, he genuinely felt a little unwilling to part ways. They had lived together for 2 months, and separating now felt a bit unnatural. Kurumi noticed this. Her eyes curved into a gentle smile, as if she was secretly satisfied. Suta, I'll test it out as soon as possible. We'll be seeing each other again very soon. She took a deep breath and smiled brightly, a smile that was both pure and sincere. Thank you. For everything. Come on, don't make it sound so formal. Aren't we friends? Suta replied with a grin. Kurumi looked at him, her expression slightly mysterious, and muttered softly to herself, Friends. That might not be the case forever. What did you say? I didn't catch that. Oh, nothing. She quickly changed the subject. By the way, Suta, the nickname you originally used, Kyuki Kozo, he's also a character as me, right? I'm curious, who is he? Cough. Suta almost choked. Crap. I nearly forgot about that hole I dug for myself. Ahem. Well, he's a great father. He really loves his daughter. But other than that, he's just an extremely ordinary background character, nothing special at all. You definitely wouldn't be interested, so let's just forget about it, okay? Feeling nervous, he immediately pulled out his system phone and changed his nickname back to his real name. A great father. Kurumi's tone was skeptical, but she didn't press the matter. What is that outside? Both of their coffees were already finished. Kurumi glanced at the empty cups, then at Suta, before suddenly saying, Speaking of which, there was something I promised you before that I still haven't done. Huh? What was it? Suta blinked, trying to remember, but nothing came to mind. Kurumi suddenly pointed toward the large window. Look outside. What is that? Suta instinctively turned to look out the window. And then a soft, warm sensation touched the corner of his lips. It was gentle, like the delicate petals of a flower brushing against him. At the same time, a faint, sweet fragrance drifted into his nose. Suta's eyes widened in surprise. When he turned his head back, Kurumi had already stood up, gracefully curtsying like a noble lady. She waved elegantly at him. Goodbye, Suta. I'll be back to see you very soon. With that, she turned and left the cafe. A parting kiss. Kurumi didn't need Suta's help to return to her world. She deliberately found an empty alley with no surveillance cameras before activating her return. A bright white light engulfed her figure, and she disappeared from this world. Back inside the cafe, Suta absent-mindedly touched his lips. He was stunned. She actually kissed me? Did she really like him? It all felt a bit unreal. But before he could think too much about it, the cold mechanical voice of the system rang out, shocking him even further. The second friend invitation letter has been sent. Chapter 19. What do you call someone stuck between bad and good luck? The second friend invitation letter has been sent. The system's announcement startled Suta. But before he could even check who had been invited, the system's voice continued. The Multiverse friend system now has 3 users, fulfilling the requirement to unlock the shop system and quest system. Shop system unlocked, quest system unlocked. A barrage of notifications overwhelmed him. Suta quickly paid for his coffee, left the cafe, and hurried home. Once inside, he eagerly pulled out his system phone and started checking. Just as expected, 2 new features had appeared on the system's interface, Shop, and Quests. Suta opened the new features and started exploring. The shop system had a simple interface, with only 2 items available for purchase: travel card, 500 points, invitation letter, 10,000 points. So expensive. Especially the invitation letter. Suta immediately felt a strong urge to complain. But after thinking about it, it made sense. The invitation letter creates a permanent connection between worlds, while the travel card is just a one-time use item. Given that difference, the price cap was understandable. A valuable invitation letter. Speaking of which, Suta still had one invitation letter from his beginner's gift pack that he hadn't used yet. He started taking it more seriously. Since this item was so valuable, he needed to choose wisely before using it. He had to make sure it wasn't wasted. Only 2 items for sale. Is there anything else? Suta continued browsing through the shop. Soon, he noticed a section labeled, Upload Item. He blinked in confusion. Huh? What's this supposed to mean? System, what's the purpose of this upload item feature? This is a trading platform for members of the friend group. Members can upload their items, abilities, knowledge, or experience as goods for sale. The system will evaluate their value, set a price in points, and any points earned go to the seller, trading knowledge and abilities. Wait, what? I can sell stuff? Suta's interest skyrocketed. He immediately began thinking about what he might be able to sell. Can I sell my immortality and time manipulation abilities? Yes. However, abilities are non-duplicable. Once uploaded, the seller loses the ability permanently, and it can only be purchased by one person. Okay, definitely not selling those. What about knowledge and experience? Knowledge and experience are duplicable. Uploading them does not cause the seller to lose their own knowledge, and these items can be purchased multiple times. Wow! This is actually a really convenient trade system. Suta was impressed. But unfortunately, the system was the one determining the price of uploaded items. So much for exploiting the system. If users could set their own prices, then someday, if a sword master joined the group, they could sell their swordsmanship knowledge at a low price. And then, suddenly, everyone in the group would become a sword master. Too bad. That would have been fun. Suta sighed, but he didn't dwell on it. Being able to sell things at all was already a great feature. Out of curiosity, Suta decided to test the upload function. Of course, he wasn't stupid enough to sell his immortality or time powers. Instead, he uploaded a pack of instant noodles. A moment later, the system evaluated its worth, 1 point, minimum price, point. A notification appeared. Suta has uploaded an item, pack of instant noodles, item description, food. Can be eaten to relieve hunger. It seemed that all friend group members received the alert. But since no one had points yet, no one would buy it. Suta wasn't trying to make money, anyway he was just testing the system. And from what he saw, it worked perfectly. Time for the lottery? Right, wasn't there supposed to be a lottery feature? Suta scanned the shop interface again. Finally, in the bottom right corner, he saw a colorful spinning wheel labeled, Lottery. Underneath, it said, 200 points per spin. Because of his beginner's gift pack, he had 1 free spin available. Should he use it now? Suta thought about it. Maybe it was better to check out the task system first, then decide. So he closed the shop and opened the task system. Task system overview. There were 2 categories, multiplayer tasks, solo tasks, however both categories were completely empty. Not a single task. It was cleaner than his bank account. System, what's the difference between multiplayer and solo tasks? Multiplayer tasks are usually world-saving missions. They are high difficulty and only appear under specific conditions. Multiple friend group members can participate, and rewards are shared based on each member's contribution percentage. Solo tasks are individually assigned and can only be completed alone. If the user receives outside help, the rewards will be forfeited. Suta fell into deep thought. So multiplayer tasks were high difficulty, large-scale missions that required team coordination. And they were mostly about saving worlds? Yeah. That definitely sounded insanely difficult. As for solo tasks, it seemed like they were meant to test and develop each individual. And they couldn't be shared. So even if he got a simple solo mission, he couldn't ask Kurumi for help. Fair enough. It seemed like tasks were the main way to earn points, so he would keep an eye out for when they became available. Come on, system, where's my first mission? After exploring the new features, Suta stared at the empty mission page. Nothing. No missions meant no points. No points meant no travel cards. As an anime fan, there were so many worlds he wanted to visit, so many landscapes he wanted to see. But for now, all he could do was dream about it. As for the invitation letter, it was too valuable to use casually. It was better to save it for an emergency, something that could change everything. Forget it. Let's try the lottery. Suta shifted his gaze to the colorful spinning wheel at the bottom right corner of the shop menu. The system had said the lottery prizes included items, abilities, knowledge and experience, even living beings. The variety of potential rewards excited him. But at the same time, he felt a little nervous. My luck isn't bad, but it's not exactly good either. What if I get something useless? If he pulled a bottle of soda, he was going to lose it. Taking a deep breath, Suta prayed to the gods of good luck, then tapped the spin button. His one free spin was consumed instantly. The wheel began to spin. Each section was a different color, but there were no labels for the prizes. Just spinning colors. Even so, Suta stared at it intensely, waiting for it to stop. And then the wheel slowed down. Stopped completely. Chapter 20, so there's another way to use it? And the system's voice echoed in his mind. Congratulations. You have obtained an ability, half cold, half burning. This ability originates from My Hero Academia. Wait. Half cold, half. What? Suta froze for a moment. Then. Holy shit. I got that? The ability half cold, half hot belonged to Shito Todoroki from My Hero Academia. A superpower from My Hero Academia. In My Hero Academia, superpowers were called quirks, natural abilities people were born with. Shito Todoroki's quirk allowed him to freeze anything with his right side, burn anything with his left side. And its power level? He could freeze an entire building in an instant. He could wipe out enemies in one move. Super strong. Of course, Suta just got the ability. At best, he could probably chill a soda can. Also, the quirk had a major weakness: using one side too much would cause frostbite or burns. But for Suta, this was no problem at all. He had drunk the elixir of immortality. His body would heal instantly. Frostbite? Burns? He'd recover in seconds. Pain? Well, he'd just have to endure it. This is actually pretty great. Suta muttered to himself, deep in thought. Was this good luck or bad luck? From a normal person's perspective, getting a superpower was incredible. Way better than winning a soda. But Suta had watched a lot of anime. He knew how overpowered some abilities could be. Compared to things like the mystic eyes of death perception, vector manipulation, dimensional control, or ultimate lies. Half cold, half hot was strong, but not insanely broken. No, no, no. Don't be greedy. Suta shook his head and slapped his face. He had gone from a regular person to an immortal, time-controlling, ice and fire-wielding superhuman. And he was still complaining? What was wrong with him? System notification, you have received a mention from Tokaizaki Kurami. Suta blinked. He exited the shop menu and checked his friend group chat. Kurami, Suta, we have a new member. Come and introduce yourself. She didn't sound awkward at all. Not even after she sneak-attacked him with a kiss before leaving. Truly a woman with a mature heart. Suta facepalmed. Right. I completely forgot about the new member. Checking the chat history, Suta quickly scrolled up. The new member's username was, The Beautiful and Noble Vampire, The Beautiful and Noble. What? Suta frowned. Unlike Kurami, who used her real name, this new person chose a fancy nickname. Which meant their true identity was a mystery. Vampires. Which one? Suta immediately started thinking of vampire characters from anime. Shaltir Bloodfallen, Overlord, Remilia Scarlet, To Project, Flandra Scarlet, To Project, Krell Teeps, Seraph of the End, Letitia Draculi. Problem children are coming from another world, aren't they? Arcuaid Brunistiot, Tsukeheim, even Alucard, Helsing, had a lily form. And beautiful didn't mean female. If someone like Dio joined and called himself the Beautiful and Noble Vampire, that would be hilarious. Suta felt a chill down his spine. Please don't be Dio. Please don't be Dio. And the system never actually said that invitations were limited to just anime worlds. After all, it was called the Multiversal Myriad Worlds Friendship System, not the Anime Worlds Friendship System. Which meant the range just got even wider. Checking the chat history, Suta scrolled up to see Kurami and the vampire's conversation. At first, it was just typical small talk between two strangers. Then Kurami started explaining the system and its supernatural nature. To prove her words, she suggested the vampire try throwing the phone away as far as possible. She even encouraged her to try breaking it, adding a confident challenge: if you can smash this phone, I'll admit defeat. At first, the vampire didn't care. She wasn't convinced. But a few moments later, her attitude did a complete 180 degrees. Her messages were now full of shock. She definitely tried both throwing and smashing the phone. Suta chuckled. Looks like every new member is gonna go through this same verification ritual. Time to join the chat. Suta finally typed in the group chat, Suta, the Beautiful and Noble Vampire. Suta, welcome, newbie. I guess you can say I'm the leader of this friend group. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Also, if you don't mind, could you tell me your real name? Kurami immediately noticed him. Kurami, Suta, where have you been? Suta, I was checking out the new system features, the shop and the mission system. I found some pretty interesting stuff. By the way, have you already returned? Kurami, Yes, I'm back in my world. I skimmed through the new features too, but unfortunately, the mission system is empty. No way to earn points yet. Suta, yeah, looks like missions only trigger under specific conditions. We just have to wait. But did you see the upload item feature in the shop? Kurami, upload item. What's that? Suta explained how the upload item function allowed members to sell items, abilities, knowledge, and even lifespan for points. To prove it, he pointed her to his first uploaded product, a pack of instant noodles for 1 point. Kurami went silent for a few minutes, probably asking the system for more details. Then she finally responded, Kurami, this is an extremely convenient feature. Too bad we can only buy things with points and not trade items directly. Right now, it's useless. Suta, yeah, without points, it's just an empty feature. Suta sighed. When is the first mission gonna drop? System notification, Kurami has uploaded an item. 1 bullet of the 4th bullet, item description, a time interference bullet that can rewind the target's state by 5 seconds. Note, effectiveness may vary depending on the object. Suta's eyes widened. Wait, what? She actually uploaded one of her bullets? Could her abilities really be sold like this? Damn. Kurami's creativity was even wilder than his. He felt a little ashamed. My first thought was to upload snacks. Maybe I really am just a dumbass. Kurami, this is amazing. Even my bullets can be uploaded. Suta, you just gave me an idea. If your bullets work, then maybe I can sell my lifespan too? He immediately tested it. And moments later, system notification, Suta has uploaded an item, 100 years of lifespan, item description, a longevity enhancing item that grants an additional 100 years of life. Holy crap, it works. Suta was thrilled. Turns out, brainstorming with others was the best way to unlock hidden features. Chapter 21, Zawarudo. Just as Suta and Kurami were excitedly testing the new feature, the newcomer finally spoke up again. The beautiful and noble vampire, ah. I see now. You people are a scam group. Your deception is just more sophisticated than most. Excuse me, what? Suta blinked. Did this vampire just call them con artists? Also, why are they talking like a medieval noble? Kurami, Vampire-san, didn't you already test my suggestions? You threw the phone. You tried to destroy it. So why are you still calling us scammers? The beautiful and noble vampire, indeed. This cursed object remains in my hands no matter what I do. Even I cannot destroy it. But there are countless strange supernatural phenomena in this world. A mysterious creature capable of creating such an item is not impossible. Kurami, mysterious creature? What are you talking about? The beautiful and noble vampire, oh? So you won't admit that I've seen through your deception? How pathetic. You humans are always the same, using supernatural forces for your own benefit. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. Do not insult me with such foolish tricks. Suta. At this point, he was pretty sure who the vampire was. Vampires. Strange creatures. The way they speak. There was only one vampire that fit all these traits. And that was Kisshadasrola Orion Heart Underblade, or her modern name, Shinobu Shino. Shinobu Shino was a powerful golden-haired vampire from the Monogatari series. She was an ancient being with a personality as sharp as a blade. Her speech was formal, archaic, and dramatic. Thou, thee, ye, verily. She spoke like a medieval noble. Or a final boss. And her nickname? Princess Rola. Welp. This is gonna be interesting. Suta wasn't sure which timeline she was from. But the fact that she knew about smartphones meant it was definitely the modern era. At least that much was clear. Suta suddenly thought of something. System, what happens if we invite someone who doesn't even know what a phone is or how to use one? System response, relevant knowledge will be directly implanted into their mind. Oh, that's convenient. Suta sighed in relief. Otherwise, as the group leader, would he have to teach every new member how to use a smartphone? What was he, a tech support guy? Bringing his focus back, Suta used his admin privileges to change the vampire's display name to her real one, Kisshadasrola Orion Heart Underblade. Kurami immediately noticed. Kurami, huh? Suta, you recognized her? Suta, yeah, this one's the real deal, a genuine vampire. Her name is Kisshadasrola Orion Heart Underblade. Oh, and by the way, not he. She's a girl. Kurami, oh my. So I guessed wrong. Suta. Why did you assume she was male? Sure, Suta joked earlier about Alucard being a beautiful vampire, but that was just a joke. Did Kurami awaken some strange preferences after learning about Shido's cross-dressing habit? Kurami, so, this Miss Kissshot, is she like me? Suta, you mean from a fictional work? If that's what you're asking, then yeah, she's the same as you. Kissshot, Humphrey. Within the realm of apparitions, my name is well known. It is no surprise that thou art aware of me. Kiss shot, enough of thy deception, vile fraudsters. I have no time for idle chatter. Cease thy pitiful tricks before mine eyes. And with that she stopped responding. Her words carried a firm, unwavering tone. She was done. Kurami, well, looks like we've been deeply misunderstood. Suta, it's fine. Over time, she'll realize we're not scammers. Actually, this makes me think we really need a proper way to prove the system's authenticity. We can't be explaining this from scratch every single time someone new joins. Kurami, I checked earlier, this group chat has an announcement board feature. I'll write a proper introduction to the system there, along with a guide on how to verify the phone's abilities. That way, new members can figure things out on their own. Suta, good idea. I'll leave it to you. Kurami, oh my, no need to sound so formal. After all, we've already kissed, my dear friend. Suta. Kurami, that's not something to just drop in the group chat. What was she thinking? For the next few days, Kiss Shot never said another word. Suta figured she wasn't using the phone at all. Most likely, her attitude was, if I interact with them, I lose. Of course, there was no way she could actually get rid of the phone. But she was probably deliberately ignoring it. And honestly, Suta wasn't desperate enough to jump into her world just to convince her. She'd figure it out herself over time. The more features the system unlocked, the more chances she'd have to realize it was real. To be blunt, he was a little scared. This was Kiss Shot. The same vampire that had once eaten 6,000 people. And besides, without an invitation, he couldn't enter her world anyway. Meanwhile, Kurami had vanished. She was likely busy testing the timeline alteration delay. So, for the time being, the group chat went completely dead. Might as well train my powers. With nothing else to do, Suta decided to experiment with his newly acquired abilities, time manipulation. Half cold half burn. He started with time manipulation. Time manipulation should cover things like speeding up, slowing down, stopping, rewinding, or even traveling through time. But as a beginner, I have no idea how much I can actually do. He grabbed his iPhone and pulled up a movie. Then, focusing on the playing screen, he concentrated and activated his ability. Suddenly the world in front of him shifted. A hazy gray mist, like flowing water, appeared before his eyes. And somehow he instinctively understood that this was time itself. Time had become visible. Although time was usually intangible, it had now taken on a near-physical form. And Suta realized his consciousness was directly linked to it. Testing his control, focusing his thoughts, he tried to speed it up. The gray mist started flowing faster. And in that instant the world around him changed. Everything slowed down. To him, it felt like everything around him was moving in slow motion. Looking back at his phone, the movie had also slowed down. Every character was moving like they were in a slow-motion scene. Suta. Whoa. He had actually manipulated time. Time manipulation, confirmed successful. Now what else could he do? Chapter 22, If You Dare, Wear a Dress. The movie playing on Rokuya. Suta's iPhone slowed down. This was the effect of him accelerating his own time. In other words, while only a second had passed in the outside world, several seconds had elapsed for him. I can actually manipulate time. Suta was overjoyed. Time had always seemed like a mysterious force to him. He never imagined that one day, he'd be able to control its flow. Next, Suta stopped accelerating his own time. He then attempted to speed up time for his iPhone. The next moment, the movie on his screen suddenly played at multiple times its normal speed, as if someone had hit the fast-forward button. So I can accelerate other objects as well, not just myself. Encouraged, Suta tried to slow time down. When he decelerated himself and looked at his iPhone again, the movie appeared to play faster. Conversely, when he slowed down the phone, the movie played in slow motion. It seemed like controlling time reduction wasn't an issue either. Suta then attempted to stop time completely. But this time, something went wrong. As soon as he froze time for just a second, an overwhelming wave of fatigue crashed over him. His body gave out, and he collapsed onto the floor before he could even react. Ugh! What the hell? He groaned in pain, using his hands to push himself up. It took a great deal of effort to get back onto his feet. Extreme exhaustion and hunger hit him all at once, leaving his head spinning. Suta forced himself to shuffle over to the sofa, where he sat down to recover. After a while, he started to feel slightly better. Luckily, his body had been enhanced by the elixir of immortality, making his recovery speed quite remarkable. What the hell just happened? Still dazed, Suta struggled to make sense of the situation. Logically, his time abilities should consume his own lifespan, just like Tokaizaki Kurami's. But since his lifespan was theoretically infinite, he should never run out of time to burn. So why did he feel this way? Puzzled, he decided to ask the system. System, what caused my exhaustion and hunger just now? Excessive energy consumption. Excessive energy consumption? Suta was stunned. Wait. Am I using my body's energy to manipulate time? Correct. Your current energy reserves are on the level of an ordinary human, so the extent of your time manipulation is limited. Suta followed up, why can't I manipulate time using my lifespan, like Kurumi does? Tokizaki Kurumi manipulates time through her angel. You do not possess an angel and therefore cannot use the same method. Wait a minute, Kurumi's time manipulation works through her angel, but I drew her ability. Shouldn't I have an angel too? The system extracts conceptual abilities from the target. For example, while Kurumi's time manipulation relies on her angel, the extracted ability is classified as a time-related power, then why not just extract the angel instead? To prevent hosts from acquiring abilities they cannot use. For instance, if you had drawn Kurumi's spirit armor, Elohim, would you wear a dress? Okay, that was a solid point. So solid that Suta couldn't even argue against it, nor did he want to. There was no way in hell he was cross-dressing. Suta furrowed his brows. Is there a way to solve my energy consumption issue with time manipulation? Introduce an energy system. An energy system. Suta sighed. That would be quite difficult for him at the moment. The Reiryaku system in Data Live was out of the question. It originated from My Otaka, and it wasn't something he could just learn. And as for Monogatari, Kishot's world didn't even have a structured power system. This issue would have to wait. At some point, new members would join the friend group, and surely one of them would have a power system he could use. Or, once the quest system was activated, he could rack up points and try his luck at winning an energy system through the lottery. For now, there was no need to waste an invitation letter on this. That was a trump card. He couldn't afford to waste it on a minor inconvenience. Having thought things through, Suta dropped the subject and continued testing his time manipulation ability to gauge its limits. Just like that, in a cycle of testing collapsing from exhaustion testing again, about half an hour passed before Suta finally stopped. In the end, he found that, at his current level, he could only perform 3 types of time manipulation: speeding up, slowing down, pausing. Speeding up and slowing down were relatively easy to control. However, pausing time, even for just 1 second, would drain him completely. Suta also speculated that the effectiveness of his time manipulation would vary depending on the target. For example, affecting an ordinary human would be simple. But if he tried to manipulate a powerful being, like Tokizaki Kurumi, the effect would likely be greatly reduced. If it even worked at all. After all, his power level was still way too weak. That's enough testing for now. Suta compared the time on his computer and his iPhone, adjusted the phone's clock, then took a short break. After a while, he poured a glass of water in the kitchen, placed it on the table, and concentrated, preparing to activate the quirk he won from the lottery. At that moment, half cold, half burn kicked into action. Suta's right palm suddenly became freezing cold. A chilling frost spread from his palm, instantly freezing the glass of water. The entire glass turned to solid ice. The extreme cold caused cracks to appear all over the glass. Satisfied, Suta stopped using cold energy and instead swiped his left hand through the air. At his fingertips, a burst of fire ignited, forming a bright red arc in the air. Then, flames gushed out of his left palm, engulfing the entire glass like a blowtorch. Under the intense heat, the ice melted. The sudden shift from freezing to burning caused the glass to shatter completely. Thick white steam rose into the air, filling the living room. Suta let out a long breath, then deactivated his quirk. So this is the best I can do for now, huh? As expected, a newly obtained ability lacks proficiency. The thing about quirks was that the more they were used, the more refined and powerful they became. Suta thought about how Todoroki Shido could freeze an entire building in an instant. He was still nowhere near that level. However, he did have one major advantage over Todoroki. Chapter 23, If I Can't Die, Then I'll Train to Death. Suta's biggest advantage over Todoroki Shido was that he was immortal. Even if he burned or froze himself, he would recover instantly. That meant he never had to worry about injuries when training with his quirk. He could keep his fire and ice powers active 24 out of 7, training non-stop. The more he used them, the stronger he would become. And so, over the next few days, Suta continuously practiced his quirk and time manipulation. He trained relentlessly, following the logic of, if I can't die, then I'll train to death. After all, since he couldn't die, he wasn't afraid to train using extreme, self-destructive methods. Just as Suta was immersed in his training, the friend group chat, which had been silent for days, finally became active again. The vibration of his system phone broke Suta's concentration. Instinctively, he picked up the phone to check the messages. To his surprise, the person who had sent the message wasn't Tokizaki Kurumi. It was Kishota's Rolla Orion Heart Underblade. Kurumi hadn't appeared in the group chat for several days. Logically speaking, testing world line change duration shouldn't take this long. Could it be she was being hunted by Obiachi Origami again? Suta wasn't too worried about Origami after all. Kurumi had more than enough stored time to deal with her. His only concern was that Kurumi might do something reckless like trying to fight Deus Ex Machina, Tokaizaki Mayo. But back to the group chat. Kiss shot, Suta. You are this group's administrator, correct? I wish to apologize for my previous accusations and mockery. Suta? Suta, wait. What? Did something happen? Why the sudden change of attitude? Kiss shot, I originally believed this phone was a type of apparition, but I was wrong. I admit I overlooked something. Huh? Just a few days ago, she was smashing it, throwing it, refusing to believe it, but now she suddenly accepts it? Suta was intrigued. Suta, so how exactly did you verify that the phone isn't an apparition? Kiss shot, I do not wish to answer that question. Not answering? Now Suta was even more curious. He recalled Kiss Shot's unique vampire abilities and suddenly had a wild guess. Suta, let me guess. Since you're a special vampire that can absorb apparition energy, you probably thought, might as well bite down on the phone and see what happens, right? And then whoops. You accidentally broke one of your fangs? Ha ha ha. Of course, this was mostly a joke. Chatting in the friend group felt a lot like hanging out with online friends, so Suta tended to let loose. Just like when he first met Kurumi, he would tease her often and even throw in a few dirty jokes. However, after sending the message, Suta noticed something. Kiss Shot went completely silent. The group chat fell into dead silence. Suta started to panic a little. Wait. No way. Right? She couldn't have actually done something that dumb. Right? Just as Suta's anxiety reached its peak, Kiss Shot finally responded. Kiss Shot, of course, my verification method was nothing like what you said. I used my beloved sword, Heartspan, to test it. TN, Yutakokoro Watari, Lit, Demon Sword Heartspan, alternatively called Kei Goroshi, Lit, Oddity Killer, is a demon sword that harms and effectively kills oddities. Suta, Heartspan? You mean the legendary oddity slayer Katana? Kiss Shot, oh? It seems you know quite a lot about me. Yes, it is the very blade designed exclusively to slay oddity or apparitions. Heartspan cannot affect anything that is not an apparition. It cannot even touch non-apparition objects, it passes right through them. When I struck the phone, the blade phased through it entirely. That is how I confirmed that it is not an apparition. Suta remembered Heartspan vividly. It was a replica that Kiss Shot created using her own flesh and blood since the original was destroyed 400 years ago. However, the reason Suta remembered it wasn't because of its strength, it was simply because it looked badass as hell. Like Sephiroth's absurdly long katana from Final Fantasy VII, it was a blade of pure style. He didn't care if it was useful, it just looked cool. Suta, I see. Makes sense. Of course, whether or not she actually used Heartspan to test the phone, Suta felt like it was better not to ask. After all, this was a vampire who had eaten over 6,000 humans. If she said she used her sword, then sure. I totally believe you. Kiss Shot, even in my long existence, I have never encountered anything like this. It is truly shocking. However, at this point, I have no choice but to believe it. Suta, you'll get used to it. At first, I thought it was ridiculous too until I actually traveled to another world. In the end, all I can say is, if it exists, then it must be real. Kiss Shot, oh? So you did not create this system yourself? Suta froze. Wait. What? Did this vampire lady really think he was behind the system? What kind of image did she have of him? Suta, that's not funny. Come on, you're an immortal vampire with absurdly strong abilities. I, on the other hand, am just a normal guy. How the hell could I have created something like this? After learning that fictional characters could actually exist, Suta had made a firm decision, no pretending to be some big shot in the group chat. He wanted genuine friendships, not relationships built on deception. If he had to trick people just to befriend them, then what was even the point? Besides, a single lie always needed countless more lies to cover it up. That sounded way too exhausting. Kiss Shot, a normal person. Then why were you chosen as the group administrator? Suta, honestly, I have no clue. But if I had to guess, it's probably because my world is special. Also, I just happened to be the first person to pick up the phone. Kiss Shot, I see. That Tokaizaki Kurumi also claimed we come from different worlds. At first, I thought she was joking. But now, I am beginning to believe it. Tell me, what is so special about your world? She was curious about Suta's world. Suta didn't mind answering. Suta, sure. The special thing about my world is information. In my world, Yukis Shadisrola Orion Heart Underblade are a fictional character in a story. The same goes for Tokaizaki Kurami. And probably most of the future members of this group. Kiss Shot, Chapter 24, Want to bark like a dog? Suta didn't wait for her reaction, he simply kept explaining. Suta, basically, I already know everything about you. Your name, your height, your weight, your past, your future, it's all documented in my world. Even though we've never met before, I already know everything about you. Kiss Shot, you're saying I am a fictional character? Suta, not necessarily. I actually have 3 theories about this. First, maybe fictional worlds have always been real. Somehow, their information leaked into my world, and people subconsciously turned it into stories. Second, maybe your world was originally fake, but for some reason, it suddenly became real. And third, well, I won't bother explaining the third one. Kiss Shot, oh? Why stop at 2? I despise it when people don't finish their thoughts. Suta, because the third one is just a crazy theory from some sci-fi and fantasy stories. It's based on the idea of a conceptual omniverse where every single thought, every little imagination we have, actually creates a real universe somewhere. Kiss Shot, confused. JPG Kiss Shot, oh? Your perspective is quite interesting. I find talking to you rather entertaining. However, your actions have greatly displeased me. Suta, huh? What did I do? Kiss Shot, you can casually access my information and history at any time. In your presence, I have no privacy, no secrets, there is not even a single veil of mystery left for a lady such as myself. This is most unpleasant. Suta, I can't really do anything about that. But maybe you can look at it another way? For example, you now have the opportunity to learn about your own future from me. Kiss Shot, Suta, I shall call you that. Let me tell you something. Suta, what is it? Kiss Shot, life requires the unknown. Especially for those with long lifespans, existence becomes dull over time. The further one lives, the more monotony sets in. The unknown is the only thing that keeps life stimulating. I have no interest in my future. What I seek is the process, the journey of countless unknowns slowly constructing my fate. Do you understand? That was her way of refusing his offer. Suta, alright, I misspoke. My bad. But I gotta say, you're quite talkative today. Kiss Shot, that is merely a misunderstanding on your part. I am naturally quite articulate. I was simply silent before because of my suspicions about you all. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up and since your discussions intrigue me, I naturally have much more to say. It is just a shame that young Tokaizaki Kurami is not present today. If Kurami heard herself being called young girl, she'd probably have some thoughts about that. Suta, she's probably busy. If you want to chat with her, you'll have plenty of chances in the future. Kiss Shot, the future, huh? If I have one, I suppose I shall. Suta paused. Something about that sentence felt off. There was an ominous vibe to it. It sounded like the kind of thing someone says when they believe they won't be alive for much longer. That worried him. Was something wrong on Kiss Shot's end? He quickly sent a message. Suta, what do you mean by that? But after a few minutes, there was no reply. He tagged her again. Still nothing. The group chat fell silent once more. Suta sighed. Man. She really does whatever she wants, huh? Just logs out when she feels like it. But what exactly was going on with her? Since he had no clue about her exact timeline, Suta couldn't be sure of her current situation. Was she just uninterested in chatting? Or was she currently in her suicidal phase, making her uninterested in friendships? At this point, it was important to understand Kiss Shot's backstory. Originally, she was human. 598 years ago, she was turned into a vampire by the vampire lord Seishiro Shishirui, meaning that she had lived as a vampire for nearly 600 years. This was extremely rare. Most vampires, after reaching 200 years of age, would begin to desire death out of sheer boredom. And Kiss Shot, nearly 600 years old, was no exception. In Kizuminogatari, the reason she traveled across the ocean to Japan was because she had chosen it as her burial ground. She came to Japan intending to die. Suta frowned. Does this mean she's currently at the start of Kizuminogatari? If so, that would be a huge problem. In the original timeline, Kiss Shot didn't get the chance to kill herself because before she could, she was hunted down by 3 vampire hunters, who cut off her limbs and left her dying from blood loss. As she was on the verge of death, her survival instincts kicked in, and she desperately fled. Fortunately, she happened to run into Kamiya Aragi, who saved her, setting the events of Kizuminogatari into motion. But now things were different. Kiss Shot had received the system phone. And even the smallest change in her actions could lead to a butterfly effect. If she escaped the vampire hunters but ended up in a different location, and if she never encountered Araragi, then she would die. Suta started to genuinely worry. But since Kiss Shot wasn't responding, there was no way to confirm her situation. She hadn't invited him to her world, which meant the door between the real world and Monogatari had not been opened. He couldn't travel there. Sigh. I hope she'll be okay. At this point, all Suta could do was pray for her well-being. After a brief moment, his thoughts shifted to Kurami. She hadn't said a word in the group chat for several days. Was she okay? Feeling a bit worried, Suta decided to tag her. Suta, Kurami. You there? After sending it, he suddenly froze. His hand instinctively scratched his face. Wait a second. Did I just type a certified simp message? Are you there? Have you eaten? Have you slept? Damn. He sounded like a doting boyfriend. About 2 or 3 minutes later, Kurami finally responded. Kurami, Suta, just to reply to this message, one of my clones had to be killed by Tobiichi Origami. Suta. Suta, wait, what? You can't just casually drop that kind of info. I feel like I just committed a crime. His guilt skyrocketed. Because Kurami's clones weren't lifeless puppets, they had independent consciousness. They were truly alive. Just to reply to his message, one of Kurami's clones was killed? Kurami, oh my. If you're feeling guilty, it must mean you care about me deeply. That's quite a delightful realization. Don't worry, I have plenty of clones. Losing one is nothing. Suta frowned. To be honest, he really didn't like how Kurami treated her clones like disposable tools. Chapter 25, Don't Be a Cheating Cat. Kurami's clones never lived long. That was because she never granted them much time. Each clone's lifespan was extremely short, sometimes lasting less than an hour. But for Suta, it was hard to see them as mere tools when they had independent consciousness clones that could go on dates, blush, and experience emotions just like the real Kurami. Just because a life lasted less than an hour, did that mean it wasn't a life at all? Kurami's careless attitude toward her clones made Suta feel a bit uneasy. Of course, this was just his personal opinion. He wasn't planning to lecture her from a moral high ground or force his beliefs onto her. Some things needed to be viewed realistically. He wasn't Kurami. He hadn't been through the same life or death struggles where she had no choice but to sacrifice her clones to survive. If he judged her while having no experience of her hardships, wouldn't that just make him a self-righteous keyboard warrior? But now things were different. Suta had given her over 1,000,000 years worth of time. She no longer needed to worry about running out. She could freely use any of her abilities without restriction. Which meant if she still continued sacrificing her clones as disposable pawns, it would be unacceptable. At this point, Suta didn't care if Kurami got mad at him. He sent a message with a hint of criticism, but in a respectful tone. Suta, Kurami, don't you think you're being too harsh toward your clones? They have independent consciousness. That means they're living beings. Now that you have unlimited time, you don't have to sacrifice them anymore. So, why not treat them with a little more respect? Kurami. She replied almost immediately. Kurami, oh my. Does this mean Suta-kun dislikes me now? Suta, I don't dislike you. I just don't like how you treat your clones as disposable tools. If they were mindless puppets, that'd be one thing, but they aren't. They're basically your children. If possible, I hope you can at least acknowledge them more. If you ever need more time, just take it from me. After thinking for a moment, he added another line. Suta, of course, this is just my suggestion. I'm not trying to force you. But as a friend, I still hope you will consider it. Kurami, Suta. You really are a kind person. Somewhere in the Data Live world, Kurami had just stepped out of her shadow space. Her phone screen glowed softly, reflecting a warm smile on her lips. Her eyes shimmered, filled with a gentle light like the soft waves of water. She looked just like a girl in love. Kurami quickly typed a reply. Kurami, don't worry. You've already said so much, so I'll change the way I treat my clones. But as she hit send, she suddenly felt a twinge of jealousy toward herself. Kurami blinked. Then laughed at herself. Am I really getting jealous of my own clones? Boom. An explosion in the distance shook the ground beneath her feet. Her golden eyes narrowed as she sensed danger approaching. From the sky, countless glowing projectiles rained down toward her location. Kurami let out a small sigh and quickly typed another message. Kurami, Suta, dam's people have tracked me down. I can't chat for now. Suta, wait, you're really being hunted? Are you okay? Do you need me to come help? Kurami. What exactly could you do, Suta-kun? Get in the way? Suta. Ouch. That hurt. She wasn't wrong, but did she really have to say it like that? Kurami, don't be mad. I was just joking. I appreciate your concern, but I'll be fine. Suta, are you sure? You're really not in any danger? Kurami, of course. They're easy to deal with. Even though Biachi Origami isn't a real threat to me anymore. Kurami, no time to chat. We'll talk later. And remember, don't go flirting with other girls behind my back, okay? Suta. The group chat went silent again. Suta put down his phone. He had a weird feeling like he was the only one in the group not doing anything important. With a deep breath, he pushed all distractions aside. It was time to focus on training his time manipulation and half-cold half-hot abilities. He had to get stronger. When the first mission dropped, he wanted to be ready. That day passed quickly. By evening, Suta decided to cook dinner for himself. Technically, he didn't need food anymore. Thanks to his immortality, starvation wasn't a concern. But he still enjoyed eating. Some habits were too hard to give up. As he relaxed, savoring his meal, a sense of unease suddenly crept into his heart. Tonight would not be a peaceful night. Halfway through dinner, the system alert sounded. System has detected a friend group member in critical condition. A single-player mission is now issued to the host. Single-player mission, rescue Kiss Shot. Mission details: your friend, Kiss Shot Esrola Orion Heart Underblade, is in critical condition and will die from blood loss soon. Go to the Monogatari world immediately, save her, heal her wounds, and help her overcome her emotional distress. Mission rewards, 1,000 points. A mission. Finally. Suta's eyes lit up with excitement. He had been waiting forever for the first mission to drop. He was starting to feel like a retired gamer. But soon, he noticed something off. Wait a minute, Kiss Shot is considered my friend already? They had barely spoken a few times. If he was being generous, they were acquaintances at best. Calling them friends seemed like a bit of a stretch. Forget it, now's not the time to care about that. Suta focused on the mission description. It's confirmed. Kiss Shot is in the beginning stage of Kizuminogatari. Because in the original story, she only ever suffered critical blood loss at the start of Kizuminogatari. But now, the system has issued a rescue mission. That means her fate has already been altered by the system's interference. A butterfly effect has taken place. Normally, after escaping the vampire hunters, she was supposed to hide in a subway station, where she would be found by Araragi-kami. But this time her hiding place must have changed. Which means she wouldn't meet Araragi anymore. Which means she was truly dying this time. Which means if Suta didn't go, no one would. Damn. I actually guessed it right. Suta's eyelids twitched. So being chosen by the multiversal friendship system wasn't just a free ride, it also came with a fair share of problems. He quickly turned to the system. How do I travel to the Monogatari world? Kiss Shot never invited me, and I don't have a travel card right now. For missions involving rescuing a friend group member, a temporary travel pathway will be forcibly opened. No invitation or travel card is required. Wait, there's such a useful rule? Suta sighed in relief. Alright then, no time to waste, send me over. As soon as he finished speaking, a bright white light engulfed him. Chapter 26, Unstoppable Force vs. Immovable Object. When Suta opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dark, damp environment. It was nighttime. Streetlights dimly illuminated the surroundings, pushing back some of the shadows. Nearby, the sound of flowing water reached his ears. Suta turned his head. He was next to a murky river. Floating along its surface were plastic bottles and random trash. It looked like he was under a small bridge. Streetlights shone on part of the riverbank, but under the bridge, it was shrouded in darkness. Huh? This isn't a subway station? The location really changed. Looking around, Suta confirmed his suspicions. In Kizuminogatari, Kiss Shot and Araragi first met in a subway station. But this place was nowhere near a subway. As he stepped forward, he felt something sticky and wet beneath his feet. He instinctively shifted his position. A faint, metallic scent hit his nose. The smell of blood. Did I just step in blood? Suta quickly crouched down and examined the ground. Under the weak glow of the streetlight, he saw a dark red puddle, slowly solidifying. It was definitely blood. Kiss Shot? Suta called out. No response. His chest tightened. Don't tell me I was too late? He hurriedly followed the trail of blood. His eyes scanned ahead. The streetlights didn't reach the deeper shadows. But within the darkness he faintly saw the outline of a human figure. Could it be? Suta quickly walked over. Under the dim light, a glint of gold caught his eye. He pulled out his iPhone and turned on the flashlight. The golden glow revealed its true form, a head of mesmerizing, breathtakingly beautiful golden hair. But that golden hair was now stained with blood, tangled, and filthy. As the light illuminated the scene, Suta finally saw her clearly. A stunningly beautiful woman lay motionless in a pool of blood. Her elegant crimson dress was soaked in blood. Suta couldn't tell if it was originally red, or if it had been dyed red by her own blood. It's her. It's Kiss Shot Esrola Orion Heart Underblade. Suta recognized her immediately. The legendary vampire, once feared as a monster now reduced to a pitiful, tragic state. Her arms and legs had been severed. Beneath her dress, nothing remained but empty stumps, her limbs completely gone. Blood gushed from her wounds, forming a crimson sea on the ground. A scene like this would make any normal person scream in horror. It was beyond shocking, beyond disturbing. Suta instinctively swallowed hard. Not because of some perverted thought like a fresh meal or anything disgusting like that, but because of the sheer terror and overwhelming discomfort the sight brought him. He quickly crouched down and gently lifted Kiss Shot into his arms. Carrying her over to a brighter spot under the streetlight, he lightly patted her cheek. "Hey, Kiss Shot. Can you hear me?" She didn't respond. Her eyes remained tightly shut, her expression lifeless. She seemed to have already lost consciousness. "Wake up. Hey, wake up. Alright, guess there's no saving you. I'll just head home then." Of course, he was just joking. Suta was completely serious about saving her. He tried shaking her again. Pinched her philtrum. Even lightly slapped her face, but she still didn't react. Kiss Shot. Are you seriously dying?" Suta felt uncertain. His time manipulation required energy, which he lacked. He couldn't reverse her injuries. There was no way to heal her with time. With no other option, Suta consulted the system. He had tested this before. If he asked questions related to the friend group, its members, or himself, the system would selectively answer. If the question was too ridiculous, though. For example, what color panties is Kurumi wearing today? The system would just ignore him. And if it was completely unrelated, like the size of the universe, whether aliens exist, or if Arnold Chan is actually a 5 feet 3 inches bodybuilder, then the system wouldn't even acknowledge it. But this question was about Kiss Shot's life. So it should be answerable. System, can Kiss Shot still be saved? Yes. As long as she isn't dead, she can still be saved. Current estimated survival time, minutes, 5 minutes? Suta's heart dropped. He quickly asked, "How do I save her?" "Provide her with blood to consume." Suta frowned. "That won't work. My blood returns to my body the moment it leaves. She won't be able to drink it." That was one of the unshakable traits of a true immortal. Any lost blood, flesh, or limbs would instantly regenerate. He physically couldn't provide blood. But the system denied his claim. Kiss Shot, as a vampire, has a higher level ability, Blood Devour. This ability overrides the immortal body's regenerative blood effect. Her consumption ability will take priority, allowing her to successfully absorb your blood. Suta froze. Wait. Seriously? So even an unstoppable force and an immovable object could have a winner? The legendary Unstoppable Spear versus Unbreakable Shield paradox actually had an outcome? If that's the case, then there was no problem. Suta was immortal. Even if he lost all his blood, he wouldn't die, he'd just become a walking, dried-up corpse. He could always ask Kurumi to use a 4th bullet to restore him. And even if that didn't work, he still had an invitation letter. There were plenty of fictional characters who could fix his condition. For example, if he invited Ryaz Creamery from high school DxD and built a good relationship with her, she could just reincarnate him as a devil. Problem solved. And if becoming a vampire gave him a weakness to sunlight, he could use the invitation letter again to solve that issue, too. The invitation letter was precious, but if it was used to save a friend, Suta could accept that cost. However, Suta didn't immediately offer his blood. Because there was one more problem he needed to confirm. System, if I let Kiss Shot drink my blood, will she try to eat me afterwards? Because in the world of Monogatari, vampires had a very messed up rule. They drank blood for 2 reasons. 1. To create a servant. 2. To consume food. If they drank blood with the intention of creating a servant, it was similar to procreation, a family bond would form. Or, to put it bluntly, it was practically an act of reproduction. This was why most vampires rarely made servants. Even if they were on the brink of death, many would rather die than create a servant. And here's the worst part: once a vampire drank someone's blood, that person would turn into a vampire. No exceptions. No takebacks. No way to undo it. The moment blood was consumed, it was a done deal. So Suta needed to confirm. If he gave her blood, would he just become her servant? Or would she see him as a meal to be finished off afterward? Because that was a very important distinction. Chapter 27, Police Officer, please believe me, I'm really saving someone. To avoid this, vampires usually handle their victims, in other words they eat them. Physically. After feeding on their blood, they consume the entire body, replenishing their energy. This counts as feeding. Whereas turning someone into a familiar, that's a whole other kind of intimate activity. What about feeding without killing or eating? Yeah. That doesn't really exist. At least, Suta couldn't recall a single case. So in short, letting Kiss Shot drink his blood? Extremely dangerous. Because who knows if she'd decide to finish her meal. You can't seriously expect her to get those kinds of thoughts about a guy she just met, right? Kiss Shot had strong morals when it came to these things. Soon, the system responded, whether the host will be eaten depends on Kiss Shot's attitude toward you, Suta. That doesn't help at all. So should he still save her? Or not? He hesitated for about 30 seconds. But with each passing moment, her time was running out. TCH. He sighed he couldn't just let her die. Of course Suta wasn't some self-sacrificing hero like Araragi-kami. He was just an average guy with a decent heart. But he wasn't about to throw his life away for someone he'd barely spoken to. So he came up with a compromise. He would save her but only halfway. He would give her his blood but that's it. No helping her recover her limbs, no solving her emotional baggage, no going out of his way to complete the mission. He didn't care about the mission rewards. As soon as she was stable, he'd book it back home. This way Kiss Shot would survive. And he wouldn't get eaten. Perfect plan. No unnecessary risks. Satisfied, Suta got to work. He gently laid her down, then froze the river water using half-cold, half-hot, crafting a sharp ice shard. With a deep breath, he sliced his own wrist open. Of course his immortal body immediately began healing the wound. Suta, TCH. This damn regeneration. So he activated time deceleration, slowing his healing down by several times. Finally, he lowered his bleeding wrist to Kiss Shot's lips. Blood dripped down but she didn't react. The blood simply slid off her lips. And immediately returned to Suta's wrist. Guess I'll have to force it in her mouth. Time was running out. After a quick thought Suta bit the bullet. He cut his wrist even deeper, wincing at the pain. Then, in one swift motion he lowered his lips to the wound and sucked up a mouthful of blood. Before his regeneration could steal it back he wrapped an arm around Kiss Shot, pressed his lips to hers and force-fed her the blood. After making sure she swallowed, Suta pulled back and prepared to cut himself again. But before he could, Kiss Shot's eyelids twitched. Then she opened her golden eyes. Suta, you're awake? He tossed the ice shard aside, relieved. Kiss Shot blinked blearily. She glanced at him and her expression twisted with shock. Thou art human? Suta, it's me, Suta. Suta pulled out his system phone and waved it. I'm the group leader of the friends chat you and I just talked not too long ago. Ah. So it is thou. Seeing the same type of phone, Kiss Shot finally remembered who Suta was, that so-called ordinary person from another world. However, her attention quickly shifted away from Suta. She licked her lips, brows furrowing slightly. Her mouth felt off. Like it had been invaded by something. What is this feeling? Suta noticed her movements. His heart skipped a beat. Oh no. She realized something was weird. So he braced himself and awkwardly explained to him. You passed out earlier, so I gave you a little bit of my blood. Kiss Shot blinked. She was momentarily stunned. A human willingly offering their blood? She had never encountered something like this before. She felt a bit stronger now. Lifting her golden gaze, she stared at Suta and asked, why art thou here? Suta saw no reason to hide anything. So he answered honestly, the system alerted me that your life was in danger, so I came. Kiss Shot narrowed her eyes. So thy purpose was to rescue me? Suta nodded. Yeah. Kiss Shot let out a small hum. Then, she sighed. I see. Thou knowest I am a vampire, yet thou still possess sympathy? How pitiful. She shook her head. I am aware of my own condition, I am dying. And thou claimest to be but an ordinary human. In that case, there is nothing thou can do. That's not necessarily true. Suta pointed at his own neck. You just need enough blood to survive, right? Then take mine. As soon as the words left his lips, Kiss Shot's gaze snapped to him. She stared at him for a full 10 seconds. Then, she spoke again. Art thou a fool? Her voice carried a complex emotion. Thou knowest full well what it means to be fed upon by me, correct? Thy body will be drained of all blood, thou shalt perish. Her eyes flickered strangely. Thou wert willing to cross worlds to aid me. Thou even gave me blood to wake me up. I will remember this kindness. Her voice carried a sense of pride, as if she found such ungrateful repayment to be beneath her. But I refuse. I shall not allow thee to throw away thy life for my sake. Go back. Her voice was firm. Unless thou art prepared to kill others and steal their blood for me, there is nothing more to discuss. Suta shook his head. Sorry, but I can't do that. I won't hurt innocent people just to save you. And besides, your time is running out. You don't have time to find someone else. He tugged at his collar, exposing his neck. Just hurry up and drink my blood already. I don't mind, so why do you? Kiss Shot's eyes widened. She looked at Suta as if he were a complete idiot. A human willing to sacrifice himself for a complete stranger? She had lived for centuries. But this level of stupidity was something she had never encountered before. This fool. Is he for real? Chapter 28, A Fool's Courage. Suta immediately understood the meaning behind her gaze. So he sighed and explained, I'm not giving you my life. I never told you this, but... He smirked slightly. I have an immortal body. Even if you drink all my blood, even if you eat my heart, I still won't die. Even if I turn into a vampire, I can always turn back. So it's fine. Kissshot's expression froze. Then, her brows furrowed. Immortal body? Her mind felt like it was lagging behind. But... Thou said thou wert a mere human? I am. Suta nodded casually. I mean, yeah, I'm immortal and have superpowers, but I'm still just an ordinary guy. Kissshot fell silent. She did not understand. She stared at him. Was he delusional? Or did he simply have a fundamentally different understanding of what an ordinary human was? Suta saw her hesitation. So he assumed she didn't believe him. Fine, I'll show you. With a flick of his wrist, Suta activated half cold, half burn. He froze the moisture in the air, forming a sharp ice blade. Then without hesitation, he sliced his left hand open. Blood flowed. A deep wound appeared. But in just a few seconds it closed up. Completely healed. Not even a scar remained. Kissshot's eyes widened in shock. She had been skeptical before. But now, she believed him. You are indeed not simple. A human could not do this. Her golden eyes fell on his exposed neck. She hesitated for a few seconds. But in the end she gave in. She was a suicidal vampire who came to Japan to end her life. But now that death was right before her, she could not accept it. Was it the idea of being hunted down that she couldn't accept? Or was it simply that, at the moment of death, she felt genuine fear? Even she couldn't say for certain. But one thing was clear, she wanted to live. That was her primal instinct. However, her pride prevented her from harming this human who had willingly crossed worlds to help her. Fortunately, Suta had proven his uniqueness, which eased her mental burden. Is it truly okay? Nestled in Suta's arms, Kissshot asked again as if seeking one final confirmation. Suta nodded. It's fine. Hurry up and drink, your time is almost up. Kissshot cast aside her last bit of hesitation. Her lips parted, her sharp vampiric fangs extended, and she sank them into his soft neck. The moment her fangs pierced his flesh, Suta felt it. His blood surged, as if responding to an ancient instinct. A wave of fear crawled up his spine. The next second his blood was no longer his own. It rushed toward her. In an instant nearly 5 liters of blood was drained from his body. And unlike before, it didn't return. Suta's face turned deathly pale. His lips darkened, taking on a sickly hue. His body shrank, his limbs weakened, and his head grew heavy and dizzy like a tiny boat, caught in a raging storm, struggling to stay afloat. Any normal person would have been long dead by now. But Suta held on. He remained trapped in the miserable state of a man drained dry but alive nonetheless. However, his suffering didn't last long. Because the moment his blood was fully drained, a terrifying transformation began. The curse of vampirism had awakened. This. A look of shock flashed across Suta's pale face. Something was wrong. Something he hadn't anticipated. His body undergoing its second transformation since drinking the elixir of immortality, but unlike before. This transformation was not gentle. It was violent. It was a change at the species level. A complete metamorphosis. Suta didn't even have time to call upon the system to undo it. Within seconds he was overwhelmed by dizziness. And then he blacked out. His plan had a flaw. He had underestimated just how violent this transformation would be. Shit. Will Kissshot eat me? That was his last thought before his consciousness slipped away. When Suta woke up, he found himself lying on the floor of an abandoned building. The windows were boarded up. Thick wooden planks had been nailed over them, blocking out the outside world. The ceiling light, its glass tube shattered, leaving only broken remains hanging overhead. Suta shook his head, his mind hazy. Then he sighed in relief. He was still alive. Kissshot hadn't eaten him. Looks like she viewed drinking my blood as a bonding act, rather than a meal. A wave of relief washed over him. For the first time since arriving in this world, he felt like he could relax. Now that he had calmed down, he finally took in his surroundings. The floor beneath him was covered in cracked linoleum, cool to the touch. Suta slowly turned his head, scanning the room. Then his gaze landed on the front wall. There was something familiar about it. A blackboard? A classroom? The room was filled with desks and chairs. It looked like an old, abandoned school. And yet, despite the sealed windows, despite the fact that not a single ray of sunlight entered the room, he could still see perfectly. Wait. Something wasn't right. It's pitch black in here. But I can still see? Normally without light, the human eye shouldn't be able to perceive anything. And yet everything around him was clear as day. Did I get night vision? Suta froze. A strange realization hit him. Did I actually turn into a vampire? The vampires of this world had a very specific weakness. They weren't just weak to sunlight, they were completely helpless against it. Wait. How does vampire night vision even work? There's no light reflection, so how am I seeing? Is it like echolocation? Like bats? His mind was racing. His thoughts drifting. He wasn't panicking about his species changing. Instead he was curious about the science behind night vision. That, in itself, was proof of how chaotic his mind was. Suta snapped out of his thoughts. And then he called out. Kiss shot? If he was still alive, that meant she was the one who had carried him here. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, a sharp pain shot through his jaw. He seemed to have accidentally bitten the inside of his mouth. Damn. Are my canines really this long now? Being a vampire is way too inconvenient. Suta couldn't help but complain in his mind. He tried touching his fangs, but when he lifted his arm, it felt heavy. It didn't move immediately. Suta turned his head and finally understood his current situation. Lying beside him, resting her delicate head on his right arm as a pillow, was a small girl with short golden hair and astonishingly beautiful features. Her soft breathing filled the air, peaceful and undisturbed. Chapter 29. Even Lilai has her dignity. A blonde Lilai using his arm as a pillow, peacefully asleep. Suta wasn't exactly surprised by this scene. He recalled the events of Kizumonogatari and immediately understood. This young girl, dressed in a puffy Victorian dress and lantern pants, looking around 10 years old, was none other than Kissshot Isrola Orion Heart Underblade. After drinking his blood, she had successfully regenerated her limbs. But one human's worth of blood wasn't enough to restore her full power. She was forced to shrink her body, returning to her 10-year-old form. Now she looked as cute as a porcelain doll. Copper. Has been refined. Suta muttered in amusement. Then he slowly slid his arm out from under her head. And with his right hand he reached over and rubbed Kissshot's soft stomach. Hey! Kissshot, wake up. Zzzzzzzzz. She let out a soft snore. Suta rubbed her stomach again. Wake up, stop sleeping already. Don't bother me. Zzz. Kissshot mumbled sleepily, then, like a lazy fish, she rolled over. Oi? Get up already, I need to ask you something. Suta couldn't reach her stomach anymore, so he pushed her shoulder instead. 5 more minutes. She refused to move, curling up like a lazy cat basking on a warm floor. A 500-year-old vampire. And she still has the habit of sleeping in? Suta felt speechless. No self-discipline at all. You've lived for over 500 years, and you're still... Wait. Never mind. After a series of relentless disturbances, Kissshot finally cracked open one eye. She glanced at Suta with an annoyed expression, an unspoken warning flashing in her gaze, a silent threat. Bother me again, and I won't hold back. Then she closed her eye again. And went back to sleep. She's got serious morning grumpiness. Suta thought to himself. He'd heard that people with low blood pressure often acted like this. Did vampires have high and low blood pressure too? After thinking for a moment, Suta decided to let her sleep. If he kept waking her up, it felt like he was digging his own grave. I'll wait until she wakes up on her own. So Suta got up from the floor. Thanks to his newly gained night vision, he walked effortlessly toward the classroom door, opened it and stepped into the hallway. The hallway windows were also boarded up. No sunlight seeped through. Suta checked his system phone. The time displayed was 2:00 p.m. Since each world had different time flows, the system phone automatically corrected it. I wonder how much time has passed in the real world. He tapped open the mission system. No completion notice popped up. Of course. Saving Kissshot wasn't the only objective. To complete the mission he needed to ensure Kissshot survived. Done. Help her fully recover, help her overcome her will to die. Suta sighed. I never thought it would come to this. His original plan had been simple: feed Shinobu his blood, immediately return home, and avoid the risk of being eaten. After that he could ask Kurumi for help, or use the invitation letter to fix his blood loss. In other words, he never planned to complete this mission. He had even accepted losing the reward. But he miscalculated. Now here he was. Well, since I'm already this deep in, might as well finish it. Suta focused on the mission interface, analyzing the next steps. According to the mission details, saving Kissshot had 3 stages. Step 1, ensure her survival. Completed. Step 2, help her recover her full strength. Step 3, help her overcome her will to die. To restore her power, she needed more blood. Suta recalled the events of Kizumonogatari and immediately realized a problem. When Kissshot arrived in Japan, she had already lost her heart. It had been stolen by Mimo Shino. But she didn't know that. She simply assumed her condition was weak. Under such circumstances, she was targeted and ambushed by 3 vampire hunters, losing her hands and feet and suffering severe injuries. To restore Kishshot's role Orion Heart Underblade to her former self, he would have to retrieve her lost limbs as well as her stolen heart. If it's the heart, Mr. Hawaii Shirt, Oceanum meme, is quite easy to talk to. I can try negotiating with him and persuade him to return the heart peacefully. As for the limbs, those 3 vampire hunters definitely aren't the type who can be reasoned with. I'll have to fight them and take back what they stole. At this thought, Rokuhara Suta furrowed his brows slightly. He was assessing his chances of victory. Those 3 vampire hunters weren't particularly strong, one might even say they were rather weak. And on his side, he was not only Kishshot's minion but also possessed supernatural abilities. The only thing he lacked was combat experience. By his estimate, it was a 50-50 chance. Clenching his fist, Suta murmured to himself, I should be able to take down those 3 weaklings. The real challenge is resolving Kishshot's emotional burden. When it came to addressing her suicidal tendencies, Suta truly had no clue where to begin. A person's mind can grow weary. Many elderly people can accept death calmly because decades of life have worn down their emotions to the point of stillness. Nothing excites them anymore. They've lived so long that they no longer have the desire to continue. For vampires, possessing power beyond human comprehension makes it incredibly easy for them to obtain whatever they desire. In other words, their desires are effortlessly satisfied. With this ease of fulfillment, their lives quickly lose meaning. And when that boredom stretches on for 200 years, they become completely numb like walking corpses. They become so bored that they seek death. At that point, they usually walk into the sunlight and wait for themselves to be reduced to ashes in golden flames. So even though vampires have no natural lifespan, those who live beyond 200 years are still considered rare. For someone like Kishshot, who had lived for over 500 years, the issue was even more pronounced. How on earth could he lift that burden from her? Forget it, I'll figure it out as I go. Suta glanced at the golden-haired little girl sleeping soundly in the classroom before shifting his gaze away and making his way down the hallway to the stairs, heading down to the first-floor lobby. The doors to the lobby were not sealed shut, they were wide open. Outside, the sun blazed high in the sky, though the air was cool, likely due to the season. Sunlight streamed through the open doors, forming golden squares on the floor. Beyond those squares, the rest of the lobby was shrouded in darkness, blocked from the light by the surrounding walls. Chapter 30, As long as I don't die from it. I almost died. At this moment, Suta stood in the shadows, carefully avoiding the sunlight. He was a vampire now, stepping into the sun would spell disaster. At least I won't wake Kishshot up down here. He glanced back toward the stairs, gauging the distance and soundproofing. Then he lowered his gaze to his hands. Raising them up, he clenched his fists tightly, feeling an overwhelming surge of energy coursing through his body. Of course, it wasn't actually limitless energy, it just felt that way because his strength had grown significantly. Time to test out these vampire abilities. Yes, the reason he came downstairs was to experiment with the changes in his body after becoming a vampire. He couldn't help it, his curiosity was just too strong. Especially when it came to anything unusual about his own body, his thirst for knowledge was insatiable. First, strength. Taking a deep breath, Suta felt the oxygen circulate through his blood. He tensed his muscles, then swung his fist down with all his might. Boom. A deafening crash echoed throughout the abandoned grammar school's lobby. The floor beneath his feet shattered, forming a crater, while debris scattered in all directions. Several nearby floor panels cracked as well, the fractures extending nearly 5 meters away. Suta stared at the destruction in shock, unable to believe that a single punch from him had caused this. To be fair, although he could manipulate time, generate fire and cold, and was now immortal, up until just recently, his physical strength had been no different from an ordinary human's. And now, conservatively speaking, his strength had increased by several tons. Lifting a small car would probably be a piece of cake. This is insane. Suta muttered in awe. At this rate, those 3 vampire hunters won't even stand a chance, I can crush them in seconds. Yes, he was getting cocky. But then he remembered Kishshot's full power, and it was like a bucket of ice water was dumped over his head. His overconfidence vanished instantly. Kishshot could jump from Japan to Antarctica on one leg. Her physical abilities went beyond the realm of absurdity. In Monogatari, she even mentioned that when she first arrived in Japan 400 or 500 years ago, she had hopped the entire way. And if it weren't for a lake cushioning her landing, Japan itself might have been obliterated. Whether she was exaggerating or not, Suta wasn't entirely sure. After all, that was just her own storytelling, there was no way to actually verify it. But still, she was undoubtedly strong. As the familiar of such a powerful Kishshot, His strength from a single punch was only a measly few tons. He had to admit, that was pretty pathetic. Saying it out loud would be embarrassing. Did he really have anything to be proud of? Wait. Is the gap between a master and their familiar really this huge? Suta punched the ground again, creating yet another crater. As everyone knows, force is always reciprocal. Even though his strength far surpassed that of an ordinary human, his body's durability had not evolved to an exaggerated degree. Thus, when his fist collided with the floor, the skin on his hand completely tore open, his flesh burst apart, and blood splattered everywhere. TCH. Suta winced in pain but simply used his other hand to tear away the shredded flesh and skin, tossing it to the ground to test his vampire regeneration. To his surprise, the discarded skin and flesh quickly flew back, reattaching themselves to his hand and restoring him to his original state. Suta's eyes widened in astonishment. This doesn't seem like vampire regeneration at all. It looks more like the cellular reformation property of the elixir of immortality. As far as he remembered, vampire regeneration involved regrowing lost body parts. This was completely different from cellular repositioning and reassembly. Wait a minute. Even after becoming a vampire, do I still retain the properties of the elixir of immortality? That would actually be a really good thing. It meant that Suta's immortality was now backed by two separate systems. One was cellular repositioning and reassembly. The other was body regeneration. With this setup, he could use reassembly for everyday injuries. And if a part of his body was taken away and couldn't be reconstructed like how Kiss Shot had drained his blood, then he could rely on his vampire regeneration to grow it back. At first glance, the two abilities seemed redundant, but they actually complemented each other perfectly. Because, as Suta recalled from the original story, when Nararagi Kami was exposed to the sun, his body went through an endless loop of burning healing in rapid succession. Kiss Shot had saved him and told him afterward, it's a question of whether your regeneration runs out first. Or if the sun sets first. It's an unknown variable. Never do something this stupid again. This implied that vampiric regeneration had a limit. Most likely, if used too frequently in a short span of time, it would eventually be exhausted. The elixir of immortality's cellular reassembly covered this exact weakness. Next, Suta decided to test his speed. He sprinted across a 100-meter distance, finishing it in less than 3 seconds. His jumping ability was even more astonishing, completely transcending human limits. After several rounds of self-experimentation, Suta was thoroughly blown away by his own newfound abilities. He was having a great time. After about half an hour of absolute chaos, he finally paused and glanced at the completely wrecked lobby floor. He exhaled deeply. Alright. Now for the main event. Suta turned his gaze toward the entrance of the lobby. There, beyond the open doors, was a patch of sunlight illuminating the ground in a golden hue. Vampires feared the sun. Suta was aware of this setting, but since he had never experienced it firsthand, he had no real sense of the danger. Truth be told, curiosity was an incredibly bizarre thing. Now that he knew he wasn't supposed to go into the sun, he suddenly really wanted to try it and see what happens. It was like the temptation of taking apart a disposable lighter to zap yourself with the igniter just to see how painful it would be. With two different kinds of immortality backing me up, I should be fine, right? Suta had complete faith in his immortal body. He believed that the chance of an instant try it and die immediately scenario was practically zero. I'll just stick my hand out for a quick test. With that, he stepped up to the boundary where the golden sunlight spilled onto the floor, then he cautiously extended his hand. In that instant his entire body burst into flames. Ugh! For the first time in his life, Suta realized just how blindingly bright the sun truly was. Despite only extending his hand, his entire being was instantly set ablaze. His hair, his skin, his flesh, his bones, everything ignited at once. A wave of excruciating pain overwhelmed him, and he couldn't stop himself from groaning. Just as he was about to yank his hand back, idiot! From the direction of the staircase behind him, a furious voice rang out. Chapter 31, Are you really gonna lick a beautiful girl's feet? Idiot! Right after the scolding came a series of rapid footsteps. At the staircase, a small blonde girl in a puffy dress lunged at Suta and delivered a flying kick straight to his waist. Suta was sent soaring through the air, forcibly thrown out of the sunlight-covered area in front of the door. That was definitely not the kind of kick a normal little girl could throw. When he hit the ground, the flames engulfing his body immediately extinguished, and within mere seconds, his flesh was fully restored. The fire that ignited when a vampire was exposed to sunlight wasn't ordinary fire. It did absolutely no damage to clothing, not even a single fiber would burn, but it directly incinerated a vampire's flesh. Even the cellular reconstruction property of the elixir of immortality couldn't counteract it. Thankfully, Suta's vampiric regeneration took over, regrowing the skin that had been burned away. As he sat up, He instinctively ran his fingers through his hair. Thank God, his hair had regenerated too. After all, if he went bald, he wouldn't get stronger. For him, being bald was completely pointless, it would only make him look ugly. You are truly a complete fool. As Suta rubbed his aching waist, a crisp yet icy voice rang out once again. The 10-year-old kiss shot, standing before him, gazed down at him with an arrogant and completely unchildlike expression. Seriously? What kind of absolute idiot suddenly runs into sunlight? I take my eyes off you for one moment, and you pull something like this? Do you have a death wish? A normal vampire would have been instantly vaporized. Suta awkwardly scratched his cheek, offering an explanation. Well, I didn't actually run into the sunlight. I just stuck my hand out to test if vampires are really weak to the sun. But then, my whole body caught fire. Upon hearing that, Kiss Shot gave him the "I can't believe you just said that" with a straight face look. You do realize that you already knew vampires are weak to sunlight, right? So why would you do something this reckless? Her voice carried a tone of frustration and reprimand. Had you not been my familiar, that little stunt alone would have turned you to ashes. Yeah. My bad, I won't do it again. Seeing how genuinely concerned she was for his safety, Suta couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed about his stupid decision. Strangely enough, despite being scolded by a little girl, it didn't feel weird to him at all. Kiss Shot's icy arrogance completely overshadowed the youthfulness of her small frame. Suta stood up and dusted himself off. By the way, Kiss Shot, he suddenly asked, how long has it been since you turned me? What did you just call me? A flicker of surprise and a hint of sternness flashed in Kiss Shot's eyes. Kiss Shot, Suta repeated, puzzled. Am I not supposed to call you that? To be honest, he didn't remember her having any particular restrictions about her name. It had been a while since he last watched the Monogatari series, so he didn't recall all the small details. Humphrey. There's no rule against it. Kiss Shot waved her little hand dismissively. If you insist on calling me that, then so be it. I have no reason to object. Despite her words, Suta could tell that she was at least a little bothered by the name. You have been asleep for 2 days, Kiss Shot said, sizing him up. As she examined him, she gave a small nod of approval. The familiar transformation seems to have gone smoothly. From this day forth, you are my servant. Wait, I was out for 2 whole days? Suta wasn't too concerned about being called a servant. He was more surprised by how much time had passed. He quickly pulled out his system phone and checked. 2 days had gone by, yet no one had sent a single message in the group chat. Is Kurami still on the run? Or maybe since different worlds had different time flows, had less time actually passed in the Data Live world? Suta figured it was probably the latter. However, that raised a new question. If time flows at different speeds, wouldn't that make it impossible to have real-time conversations? For example, what if one world experienced only a single second, while another world went through a full hour? Wouldn't that completely mess up conversations? Suta silently threw this question at the system in his mind. A moment later, the system responded, when using the system phone to chat, the time flow of all participating members' worlds will temporarily synchronize. Oh! That actually makes perfect sense. It explained why the group chat had been functioning normally so far. Hey, servant, I'm talking to you. Kiss Shot noticed that Suta was zoning out and couldn't help but feel a little displeased. Ah, sorry, I was just thinking about something. Suta snapped back to reality and glanced at Kiss Shot's thin arms and small legs. She caught his gaze and explained, as you can see, my limbs have regenerated. However, only their shape has returned on the inside, they're still hollow. Does that affect your movement? Not at all. Daily activities are fine, but I can't use my vampire abilities for the time being. Kiss Shot stood barefoot on the cracked wooden floor, her tiny toes looking like little pearls, round, smooth, and glossy. If a certain type of person saw them, they'd probably want to never mind. Speaking of which, servant,